Okay, so now let me stop sharing and then share this thing here. Come in. Yes, so let's look at this here. Henry, can you
Okay.
see my screen?
Yes, please.
Yes, can you? Yes. So the last time I told you before we start, I would take my time to take you through the project management process groups, okay, and then the knowledge areas. You know, before and even we start working on the project itself, some things ought to be done, some contractual agreements ought to be done. We need to
Okay.
identify our stakeholders, develop the project charter, okay?
Yeah.
So these things are done at the initiating phase, okay?
Okay.
At the initiating phase. But then, so here, the process groups these are grouped according to the phases. You get it here. The
Yeah.
project life cycle. You know, the life cycle is initiating, planning. I don't know whether this is large enough for you to see, but I think let me increase
I
it. I think
can,
this is better.
yeah, okay, this is
Okay,
better.
good. So if you look at it here, we have the initiating, planning, executing, and then closing. We usually say that the monitoring and controlling aspect of the project lies within, while you are even planning and then executing. It gets to a point you need to monitor whatever it is you are doing and then controlling. You get it
Okay.
now.
Yeah.
So now the processes that the project management processes are distributed along or across these process groups or the life cycle.
Yeah.
Okay, then we're looking at the knowledge. That's why we call it the knowledge areas,
Yeah.
the know-hows. You need to know how to integrate. You need to know
Okay.
how to manage the scope. You need to know how to manage the schedule. Okay, how will you manage the cost? How will you manage quality? How will you manage the resource given, the communication, the risk involved, procurement processes, stakeholder engagement? Okay, so
Okay.
these are the knowledge areas, the things that we need to know. Aha. Now, under each knowledge area, the know-hows, if you want to perform, let's say, integration management, what will you do? The processes there, okay? You will
Okay.
fill up the project charter. You get it now. You're
Mhm.
developing the project charter. When is the project charter developed? It is developed at the initiating phase. So you see that it falls under the initiating phase.
Yeah.
Then when we are planning, what aspect of integrating management falls under planning? We would want to develop the project management plan, which, like we said, encompasses all the subsidiary plans like the scope management plan, schedule management plan, etc. Okay, so
Yeah.
with integration integration management or project integration management, you do these steps. So
Okay.
that is across this area.
Okay. Hello. Develop project charter. Develop project charter. Develop project management plan. Direct and manage project work.
Yes, Henry.
Yes. Okay. You're back.
Henry. Yes. Can you
Yes.
see my screen? Yes. One of those things with this internet, this connectivity thing, right?
I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
Your screen is
So
not back.
can you see my screen?
No, please. Your screen is not here.
Okay, then let me try and see if I can share it again.
Okay, I can see now.
Is it working now?
Yes,
Good.
working.
So is it? Hold on, please.
Okay.
So with this, you see, we talked about develop project charter. It is a process.
Okay.
Okay. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Then develop the project management plan. Direct and manage the project work. Even then we have, yes, then we have the manage project knowledge. Okay. So
Okay.
these processes moving across here fall under project integration management.
Okay.
So if we count them, one, two, I think they have to, then we come to, so let me put 7 by this. So there are 7 processes within integration management. Then we come to scope management. At the initiating phase, we don't do scope management. Scope management starts from the planning phase. So we plan scope management. So you see that there are 4 activities, or let me put it this way, there are 4 processes, okay, within
Yeah.
the planning phase of project scope management. That is plan scope management, collect requirement, define scope, and then create the WBS, or the work breakdown structure. So the 4 here plus the 2 processes and the monitor and control. So you see, when we get to the executing phase, we don't do scope management.
Yeah.
Exactly. The only thing we will do around the execution phase will be to validate and to control the scope, so that while we are executing the project, we make sure that we are doing exactly as the scope of the project says, the project scope and then the product scope. I'm sure you've gone through the slides, and
Oh,
then
yeah.
you know the difference now between, exactly. So you see that during the closing phase 2, there's nothing like um, project scope management.
Yeah.
And so there's no process there. So that will mean that we have 6 processes over here.
Okay.
Then we come to schedule management. How are we going to manage the activities such that at the end of the day, we deliver the set project at a set time that we've been given? So here, at the initiating phase, there's no process. At the executing phase, there's no process. And then the closing phase, there's no process. However, during the planning phase, we have the planning, the schedule management, we defining activities, we sequence them, estimate, then develop the schedule. Once we've developed the schedule, we will execute. Once we're executing, we are not doing anything to the schedule. However, we would want to control the schedule.
Okay.
See that, okay, this activity is supposed to take 3 days. Is it taking 3 days? The real issue on the ground is that it will not take 3 days, maybe 4 days, due to some unforeseen circumstances. So that is where those changes ought to be made and all that, which of course will go through the integrated change control. You see, so here, how
Yeah.
many processes do we have? So 1,
Yeah.
2, 3, 4, 5. Is that not it? Plus this, that will be 6. Okay. Then we
Okay.
come down to cost management. Cost management has 4 processes. Okay. Quality
Okay.
management has only 3 processes: plan quality management, manage quality, and then quality control or quality management. Then we come down to
Process.
that's one thing about the annotation. Let me see. Okay. So you know what? I'm going to rather use the annotations from, please pardon me, let me do something here. I
Okay.
want to erase this one, then I'll use this one rather to do the annotations.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So now use the draw. So now we said that here we have 7, right? 7
Yeah.
processes here. Validate scope, scope management. There are
Let's
6.
take
This one, 2. I think there are 6 here.
that. Yeah.
6, and this is 4, right?
Yeah.
Yes, this is 4. Good. Then
That's
we come to quality management, 3. Good. Then we come to resource management. That is 6, right?
yeah.
Yes, 6. Good. And then we have, if you look at
3.
communications management, we have 3 processes. Okay. Yes. Then we come to risk management. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
That's it.
7 processes.
Mm.
Okay. Yeah, 7. Then we go to procurement. How many? 3.
That's 3. Yeah.
Good. Then stakeholder management. Yeah, stakeholder management. How many do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4.
4.
We have 4. So now when we start, yes, so now we're going to tally them. 7 and 6 will give us 13, right?
Yeah.
So that will be 13, is that not it? Then
Yeah.
plus 6 will be 19.
19.
19 and 4 will be 23.
Yeah.
Then this will be 26. 26 plus 6 here, 32.
32.
Then plus 3, 35. Then we
Yeah.
come to 7. That will be 42. Is that not it?
42. Yeah.
Plus 3.
45.
Yes, plus 3 will be 45. Is that not it?
Yeah.
Then plus 4. That will be 49.
Yeah. Wow.
Good. So across the knowledge areas, we know that, you see, we have 49 processes. So these are the 49 processes that we are talking about here. Now, another way of looking at them is also looking at it according to the um, process
Process group.
groups. So how many processes do we have under initiating phase? We have 1, and then we have 2.
Yeah.
So under initiating, we have 2. Have you seen it now?
Yeah.
Do you get it?
Yeah.
Then we come to planning. So we're going to count all the processes under planning. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So 24.
Okay.
Then we come to, yes, then we come to, excuse me, the execution phase. 2,
Yeah.
3, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So you have 10 here. Then you come to, so the close project, you have only 1. So let me put that
1.
1 here, and then let's go to control. So control, you have 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let me come here. 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, control resources. Okay, 9. Is that not it?
Yeah.
10, 11, and then 12. So let's see if this will be up to the 49. Okay, so this and this will even give us 34. Is that not it?
Yeah. 34.
24 and this will be 34. 34 and then 12 will give us
46.
46.
Yeah.
46 plus the 3 here, that will be
Yeah.
49.
Yeah.
So you see, yeah, so all together, so you see that it's the same processes, but if we say we are looking at it along the knowledge areas, that's how we're going to do it. We'll take every knowledge area and look at the processes there. Okay,
Okay.
good.
Okay.
Then when we want to take it from the
Process.
process groups, then you pick the process group, then you take it also from there. You see,
Yeah.
now, like I told you earlier, if you really want to pass the exams, this book of the law should not depart from you.
Okay.
You get it now?
Yeah.
This one, you should be able to write everything here. Exactly, this one. You should be able to distribute um, the process groups and then the, how do you call it, the knowledge areas. Okay, yes. And you
Okay.
see, the process groups, funny enough, sorry, the knowledge areas, it follows as it is. It's not like you can start with project integration management, are you
Mm,
there? And then
yeah.
go to maybe cost management.
Okay.
It is in that order. It is
Okay.
ordinal. You perform integration management, scope management, schedule management, cost management in that order. Okay, it is never interchanged. Okay, so
Okay.
what you need to do is, first of all, memorize this like a telephone number: 224
Okay.
10 12 1.
Okay.
224 10 12 1. The moment you have this there, you are talking about
Mhm.
the process groups. So you know that in the initiating phase, there are only two processes. Then
Yeah.
the next is 24. So planning is what? 24. Is that not it?
Yeah.
Then execution, there are 10 processes. Monitoring and control, there are 12 processes. Initiating, there's one process. And these processes are across the knowledge areas. Then you come to the knowledge areas.
Yeah.
7 double 6 4 3 6. Okay. 3 7 3 4. Yeah. So you must memorize this like the code of your credit card.
Okay.
Yes, you need to. And once you do that, you see there's something that happens. If you're able to do this 224, which is quite easier, 224 10 12 1, it is easier. So you write it under. Then you come to this side. Then you look at 7 6 6 4 3 6 3 7. Do you get it? 3
Yeah.
4. I mean, if you have a friend in the UK, US, they tend to have longer digit. You can be able to
Yeah.
do this. Exactly. Once you write this according to the knowledge areas, the way they've been arranged, and you do this one and you start entering, you know that there are only two processes in the initiating phase,
Yeah.
one at the integration management and one at stakeholder. You see here. And then the only process at the closing phase is at the integration management side. Okay. So
Okay.
between today, let that be your assignment. I mean,
Yeah.
that you start doing this.
Okay.
When you start doing this on a daily basis, I'll send you a certain um, material, that a handout that you use to do that. There's also another
Okay.
video that I have that takes you through how the project is actually managed in real world based on these knowledge areas and process groups. It's about 1 hour or so. A certain
Okay.
guy did that, and I think when unfortunately there are materials that you can use. Okay, to do
Okay.
it. So once
Alright.
you are able to do this, seriously speaking, you
Yeah.
know, when I was preparing for it, it was said that before the exams, you can actually sit down and do this table. And you know what,
Mhm.
Henry, I picked the paper. You know, you'll be given a certain paper and then a pencil and then their own calculator.
Okay.
Then I started, even before the exam started, I wanted to quickly write this.
Everything.
And the
Yeah.
lady, the supervisor, yeah, the supervisor came and then just picked it for me and then threw the paper away and gave me a new one and told me that PMI says that it is not done anymore. let me be honest with you, that was the beginning of my confusion. I had to now re-strategize because the strategy is that you're going to pour it down.
Yeah.
I was going to pour this one down, pour certain formula down, and then as the moment I come across the question, I know what to look at and do it.
Yeah.
With this, let me be honest with you. If you go to the room with this, it will be difficult for you not to pass this paper.
Mm,
Because when they ask you, so at this point, what should be done? It is here. You know what should be done after what. I hope you get the point.
yeah.
Yes. So she took it from me, and then but I understand the advanced countries, they are a bit liberal on them because in some of the foreign materials that I read, they still tell their students to write these down. But I don't blame them because they can do genuine work. As if you joke, we'll copy.
Yeah.
As we can beat the system right now. Yeah, as we can beat the system. So I think that's the reason why it is. But do it on a daily basis. What I noticed was that even though she picked it from me, I took my time, calmed down, and then decided to work with it. And then what helped was the PMIisms that I've been talking to you about, the responsibility and then the ethics. You
Yeah.
see, the decisions that you are supposed to take, especially the decisions that you have to take, you have to look at the issues of ethics and then responsibility. You understand? Are you acting professionally as far as PMI is concerned? These two things, this particular one here, and then that one. And then another thing I'm going to teach you is that when you come across a question, the main exams, they give you the opportunity with your mouse. When you right click an answer option, it
Mm-hmm.
will cancel it. So for instance, it will cancel it like this.
Okay.
Okay, let's take that these are the four answer options.
Okay.
So when you click on it, this will go. If I click on it, this will go. It is very easy to identify a wrong answer than a right answer.
Yeah.
Exactly. So when you cancel the wrong answers, you see that it leaves the two answers what standing. The
Yeah.
two, yes, then you choose the best possible situation. Now, in some cases, all answers, the two answers are right too, but they are saying the best out of the two.
Mm.
So that is where it comes in. And then there's something about each and every individual. You see, when I am answering a question and I am torn between two answers, my first inclination has always been correct
Okay.
with me. My first inclination has almost always been correct. So I'm not the type who does objective test and goes back to change answers.
Okay.
No, 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 no. I don't encourage that when I'm doing objectives, else I'll get it wrong. And how will you know that? You notice that through your practice test. You see that when you finish and you are going through and you get one wrong, you say, at this point, this was your initial option. Then you choose
Yeah.
this. Yes, so I noticed that for a very long period of time. So when I'm torn between two right answers, my first instinct is what I go by. You get it? Then the other strategy which I did was that it's computer based. The system can jam at any time.
Yeah.
So there were 200 questions. I numbered one up to 200 on the paper I was given. And each answer I chose, I wrote it down.
Oh wow.
Yes, I was very meticulous. So if it is answer question number one and I think it is A, I will choose this. And if I'm not so sure, I will choose an answer, but put asterisks there.
Yeah.
The reason is that the software has been designed to pick wrong answers and then unanswered questions.
Okay.
So if you don't answer a question, it gives it as wrong. So you don't leave a question as wrong. Yeah. Yes. Do you get it here? So
I guess.
those are the techniques that I used being an educator myself, and then other things that I learned online. how to approach the exams. So these are things that I will personally take you through, because listen, if you don't know this, I trained a certain lady to write black belt. The first one, I didn't train her. She trained and then she came to join the class. The two students who actually were trained by me passed, but she came later when we were writing exams. Then I noticed that she was not prepared, so she failed. The next one, I took my time to take her through. Then I was convinced that she was going to do well, but she didn't pass. And I asked her why. So she was giving the breakdown and everything. You know what she did wrong?
What did she do?
Whenever you choose a question as mark for review. Mark for review means that you are not so sure. So you're going to go back and review it.
Yeah.
The computer takes it that that question has not been answered.
Yeah.
So all, yes, so the ones that she even answered and put mark for review, I didn't do that in my exams. If I want to review it, I rather put asterisks on the paper that I write the answer on, so that
Yeah.
when I finish, I go back to those questions. And then,
Uh,
so exactly, but she didn't do that. So when she submitted the work, the mark for reviews went as unanswered. And so she failed. So this time around, she failed not because she didn't know the answers. She failed because she did not on mark for review. So you see how, I mean, with the computer-based exams, it's a bit technical, you see.
yeah.
So that is it. Let's see. I want to see if your other Henry has joined. He has not joined. So let's start. Okay, because
Okay.
we do not have time. So I'm going to start with the schedule management, because
Yeah.
schedule management and then cost management, there are three key areas that you should look at: scope
Okay.
management, schedule management, and then cost management. The others are very easy to read and then get it. But the three here, scope management, schedule management, and then the cost management, these three form together form the performance baseline. So we have the schedule baseline, you have the schedule cost baseline, and then you have the cost scope baseline. These three together will be the performance baseline. That is, the project will be judged based on these three key areas.
Okay.
Did you finish on scope?
Yeah, I
Did you
finished on
finish
scope.
on, yes? Did you finish on schedule? Did you finish,
No.
like when you are being assessed, what you did,
Okay.
was it within scope? Was it
Mm,
within schedule? Was it within the cost?
yeah.
Exactly. That is why these are three key areas that I would like you to pay attention to. So with that much ado, let me stop sharing this content. And then I hope this one has a bit highlighted more on the processes for you to get it.
Yeah, it has.
Is it okay now for the processes? Is it okay now?
Yeah. Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, so now
I
let
don't
me
think
come here.
we have these ones. The one
Okay.
that we have was the colored one.
Which,
That, that one was the
yes.
inverse of this. So if you can also send me this one so that I can
Okay.
play with it and know how to
Yes,
interchange
yes,
them.
I'll do that. I'll do that. I'll do that. I have one that is blank that when you print it out, you'll be able to write it yourself. I'll add that one
Oh,
too.
oh,
Yes,
okay.
yes, yes, yes. Yesterday, I had to rush from Akosombo to Accra because my little girl wasn't well, and then there was a family engagement, and the mom had to be there because of my training. I couldn't attend, so I had to rush and then come and
Take
see
care.
her.
Yeah.
That's how come. Yes, that's how come we couldn't have the class. So I'm in Accra now. I toggle
Okay.
between Accra and Akosombo. Okay.
Yeah.
So she has this thing of wanting to know whatever I'm teaching. Oh yes, and then there was one time I was teaching my student logical reasoning, and I made a certain assertion that The statement is that every good math student is in a football team. So that was the assertion, and then we made the argument around it. So afterwards, I was having a discussion with her about somebody, and I said that person is a good math student. He said that then daddy, he's in the school football team.
Yeah.
Asked her, why? I said, but daddy, when you were teaching, you said if somebody is good in math, the person is in the football team.
Football team,
So,
yes.
so I try not to discourage her from. No. She gets to, with time.
Yeah.
So we're looking at schedule management.
Okay.
Schedule management. Initially, it was time management, but we're saying that it's not just about time. We cannot manage time.
Yeah.
That's the reason why you can manage the schedule, but not the time. So within here, we're looking at the definition of project schedule management, explain what project schedule is, Gantt chart, and the network diagrams. Identify the key terms used in project schedule management. Describe the project schedule management process, and then explain various schedule network analysis techniques. Honestly, if there's any part of the exams that wastes time, it is the part that says that you should, this schedule network analysis, this one
Shallow network analysis.
here,
Okay.
seriously, and then the network diagrams,
Okay.
i.e. determining the critical path, determining the float, the lead, and then the lags. We shall look at that, okay? Because if you're not fortunate and they ask you to determine the critical path, determine the slope, the float, you have to draw the network. If you come across
Wow.
a very simple network, fortunately for me, I didn't come across any Hudius schedule network. Yes, it was just smooth. And even that, I was supposed to just calculate the critical path. But of course, it is one mark. You know that.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm listening to
Yeah,
you.
it is one mark. So I always advise that when you meet a question that you know that is going to take more than 2 minutes of your
I'm
time,
mm-hmm.
okay,
Yeah.
put asterisks on that question, run through, and then when you finish, you go back.
Okay.
One of my students who took the black belt exams and passed, that is what he did. He first of
Okay.
all ran through all the 200 questions. When he finished, then he went back to those difficult aspects, and then he passed. So that is it. So let's look at what is project schedule management. Project schedule management includes the processes required to manage the timely completion of the project.
Okay.
Once the charter has been, charter has been approved and given to you, usually management will ask you, how long is it going to take for us to
Yeah. The other question
do
I left.
this? And then they would want to know the cost. Yes, they ask that. And even within the project, they will ask you, do you think we can finish on time? You see?
Yeah.
Exactly. So once we talk about schedule management, we are looking at all these techniques, okay,
Mm-hmm.
involved so that we'll be able to achieve our goal. What are the tools available? Remember, within a certain context, the environment, the organization, and the organization has certain softwares or applications for schedule management, and yours is to go by them. You understand?
Yeah.
So that is basically it. So project scheduling provides a detailed plan that represents how and when the project will deliver the schedule. How the project schedule is related to the scope of the project.
Okay.
If you remember, you come out with your WBS in the project scope management.
Yeah.
Now, the WBS is typically a decomposition or a breakdown of the
Scope of work.
work involved in the project. So once you have, yes, exactly. Once you have broken it down to the point that you can never break it down again, that is the work packages. We start developing the schedule based on these work packages. You understand?
Yeah.
And even when we want to estimate cost, when we get there, you see that when we even want to estimate cost, we'll go back to our WBS. You get it? And
Yeah.
then take the, then we start from the bottom and then we go up. So we call it bottom up estimation. We'll talk about all that. Okay. So there's a relationship between the scope management, schedule management, and then the cost management. It is believed that any changes to any of them, you tend to affect the other. That is why it is usually called the iron triangle. So let's see. We see it defines how schedule contingencies will be reported, and then where, seriously speaking, depend on the situation, things are not the way you planned. Okay, so we have to look at how we're going to handle those contingencies.
Okay.
So the key processes here is that we're going to identify the activities, which of course have been done within the WBS already. Then we're going to estimate the duration of these activities, and then now we're going to sequence them. Okay, after casting maybe the foundation, you're going to do this. After doing that, you will
I
do
have a
this.
question.
Okay, we need to know which one comes after which one. And then in some cases, which of them can we do in parallel? Yes, yes,
So my question is with
yes,
the
I'm
sequence.
here.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hello?
Yeah. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
the sequencing. Yeah, I can hear you.
The sequencing. You see, it's we have sequencing and then the overlapping, right?
Yes, yes, yes,
So in such a case, if you have overlapping activities,
yes.
like some of them being parallel, how would you go about it? Like, does it still come under the sequencing activities as is a process?
Yes, yes. You see, it will come under sequencing activities, but we'll talk about it as the scheduling technique. You understand?
Okay.
So
Okay.
depending on, yes, yes, yes. So when we come to even the critical path method and the critical chain, you'll see that, yes, when we are sequencing them, we try to look at the order in which they are moving. Okay.
Okay.
Now, some of them may move in parallel. Okay. But
Okay.
when we are moving things in parallel, most of them, it is because we want to compress the schedule. Okay. But ideally, we say that, hello, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please, I can
Yes.
hear you.
From A, you move to B. Exactly. From A, you move to B. From B, you move to C. Okay. As
Okay.
we are trying to sequence this, then we can see that, okay, this one can take this number of days. This one needs to finish for this number of days before this one can start. So in that case, while this one is waiting, is there an activity that can be done?
Mm,
You understand? You see,
yeah.
so these are the techniques that you're going to, but ideally you'd want to sequence them. I hope you
Okay.
get it.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, so we usually sequence as per the dependencies. This is very important. Okay, per the dependencies. Okay. Now, scheduling provides how and when the delivery happens and acts as a communication tool. It communicates to us, and then we even have to communicate amongst ourselves. Okay, So this one will happen this way. This one will happen at this particular time. Okay.
Okay.
Now the team selects the scheduling method. Okay. Are we using the typical agile approach? Okay. You see, if you are in a typical agile world, okay, usually the software industry, if you are using the Scrum methodology, Scrum, we want to work on what we
Yes,
call
come.
the MVP. Yeah, Scrum or Scrum, just based on the fact that the customer wants something that is what working. He wants to see progress. So
Yeah.
we want to develop the MVP, give it to the customer to work, use it, and then give us feedback, and then we work on it. So the scheduling here will not be the same as the typical waterfall, where we're going after this one, let's go to that one. So everything depends on the team and the environment or the industry that you find yourself. That's why we are saying that the project life cycle depends so much on the environment or the need of the organization. Do you get it now? Exactly.
But I have a
Now,
question.
yes, please
So
come again.
the agile approach, can it be interchanged with the Scrum?
In fact, the truth is that
Mm-hmm.
they are within the same context. The reason is that why are we doing the agile? What is agile? Agile is just about speed,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And then
Yeah.
the Scrum tends to also respond to the customer's requirement and all that in that kind of speed. One, the technology landscape is changing. Customer requirement even keeps changing, okay?
Yeah.
So once we use and adapt this one, that's why Scrum, some will say Agile Scrum Master, if you've come across that before.
I think I
The
have.
Agile Scrum, yes, the Agile Scrum Master, or sometimes the Agile Certified Professional, they are all under the same umbrella. Seriously speaking, they are all under the same umbrella. Yes. Okay. Have I answered the question well?
Yes, you have.
Okay, so let's continue. Now, for small projects, planning processes can be combined as one process. If the project is not too big, okay, we
Yeah.
can go through the entire processes here under just one process. But if the project is big, it will encompass several life cycles, okay, because it has several phases. So the planning process can happen at one phase, and then when we are going to another phase, we're going to plan again, okay? So that is one thing which, these are the trends that are now coming into play as far as project management is concerned. Okay, yes. So we see that when possible, the detailed project schedule should remain flexible throughout the project to adjust for knowledge gained, increased understanding of risk, and value added activities. You see, once we are developing the schedule, we have to add what we call buffers, right? It has to be very
Yeah.
flexible because as we move on, we now tend to understand what we are doing. Okay. The
Okay.
level of risk, even as we said, initially it is high, but as we are moving forward, the project, the risk level goes down.
Yeah.
You see, so in that case, maybe you assigned 5 days to the activity based on a certain risk you imagined or anticipated, right? And
Yeah.
so while you are scheduling, it shouldn't be too fixed, strict that at the end of the day, if there was a certain risk that has materialized, you cannot do anything to your schedule. Now, the issue of value added activities is very important. Okay, I like this saying that I came across some time ago, just recently anyway, that there's nothing as useless as doing so efficiently that which shouldn't have been done at all.
Come again with that.
There's nothing as useless as doing so efficiently in something that shouldn't have been done at all.
Okay.
So within the project, we need to identify the value-added activities. See,
Okay.
anything that is not adding value to whatever you are doing, okay,
Okay.
should not be done at all. So as we schedule and then write certain activities and all those things down, in the process of the project, we can say that, sorry, this particular thing is not so important. It will not add any value to the project that we are doing or the product or the deliverable. Okay. Some of them are relevant non-value added processes like the administration aspect that you cannot do away with them, because definitely the administrator should be there to be maybe in answering certain calls or be giving you certain feedbacks. So those are, we call them relevant non-value added activities.
Okay.
Okay. They are not directly related to what you are doing, but you cannot also say that you don't need them.
Okay.
You get it? Yes.
Yeah.
So these are the things that we should look at. So trends and then emerging practices in project schedule management. This is the addition to the PMBOK. The PMBOK 5 didn't have these. Okay. We're looking at the complexities and the size. We talked
Yeah.
about this one in the,
Came
yeah.
under this.
Is that?
In the previous case. A question came
Is,
under the rolling wave planning in
yes,
the.
yes, yes, yes. In the
Okay.
one that I gave you, right? I carefully
Yeah.
selected those questions.
Um,
I selected them based, most of them were based on the initiating phase and then what we had done so far. Okay.
okay.
I
Okay.
wanted you to see how the exam actually looks like. Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
So those rolling wave planning and all those things,
No,
yes, comes in here. So are we looking at a small project or we're looking at a large project? Like we said earlier, okay,
Yeah.
considering the time and then the level of effort required for knowledge management, risk management, benefit management, and other value added activities. We looked at that earlier, okay.
Yeah.
The size of the project will tell how you deal with these things. Then the other one here, in fact, most of them are more related to IT and then Agile, you see, like scheduling with a backlog, okay. A
Mm-hmm.
backlog simply means a list of priority of requirement. So we have listed the requirements by the customer and we have prioritized them, and we pick each and every one of them and we work accordingly, and then we obtain feedback and then go back to do the necessary thing. It's purely under Scrum. So if you do Agile Scrum Foundation, you go into detail here. PMI, we're not going to ask you questions here. The questions that they're going to ask you is that within schedule management, what are the emerging practices? Okay, rolling
Okay.
wave planning has been there, and I remember even during when I was writing the PMI PMBOK 5, rolling wave planning was there, where you see like rolling wave, you know how so it is iterative in nature. We do a first batch, we get to understand it, then we continue to do further planning. So in this case, you don't do the planning of the entire project at one sitting. Okay, it's
Yeah.
like bit and exactly. So it's a form of rolling wave planning technique that is based on what? Adaptive life cycles. Okay, and when we talk about adaptive life cycles, agile also comes into mind. The benefit
Yeah.
of this approach is it welcomes changes throughout the development cycle of the project. Okay. In fact, when I was doing that ASF, Agile Scrum Foundation, one of the things is that, I mean, they welcome mistakes, and then to
Okay.
them, a mistake made also gives an opportunity for you to learn. Do you get it here?
Yeah.
Yes. So yes, that is it. Now, we're saying that a volatile marketplace, constant change in requirement, change in industry dynamics, and then the technological landscape requires an agile approach. In other words, the need for speed. You
Yeah.
see,
Yeah.
first to market is so important. If you're not first to market, if you don't get to the market at the right time, you can lose big time. You see, and we see it around us. Okay, some companies just decided to um, rely on past glory and then swim in that kind of success without thinking about these
The
things,
future.
that things are changing. Exactly. Okay, things are changing. And before they could say Jack, I mean, they had lost their customer base.
Yeah.
Okay, so the MVP, okay, is developed. And then here I just gave something briefly on what MVP is. MVP originated from Lean Startup. Lean Startup is saying that, look, you don't need to come out with a perfect product before you enter the market. But within the industry, there are argument here. Some are saying that, what if you don't come out with the best product, especially if you are just starting? Apple can decide to play around this. But if you just started as a company and then your first product to the market, I mean, doesn't have what will wow customers,
Yeah.
then yes, you are in for trouble. But then again, others are saying that, look, you can start with something, and then based on the input and the comment of customers, you build on a solid product. So that is the lean startup. So here, like, I mean, with your field, I know you understand this, so let me not,
Yeah.
yes, go into detail. You understand this. Now, on-demand scheduling. This does not rely on a schedule that was developed previously for development of the project or product, but rather pulls work from backlog as resources become available. You see, the word on demand, okay? So it typically used in the Kanban system and is based on the theory of constraint and the pool-based scheduling concept, typically under lean manufacturing, okay? Where
Okay.
we don't want to store inventory because inventory is a necessary evil.
Yeah.
Too much of it, if you store too much of it, it is money that you're keeping, and it's not necessary to store, especially when that's why Toyota decided to go by the just in time. So all these are just under just in time, okay,
Yeah.
scheduling. Yes, so this is just a highlight of it. For this, I know when you just, it's an update of the slide, okay, so when you pick your slide, you will not see this in it.
Okay.
Yeah, you will not see this. So I'll let you have time to time. I go through and then see if I can add one or two things. Okay. So
Okay.
Kanban, I mean, um, it's more a visual something. So they try as much as possible to indicate when to replace inventory and when not to. Okay. And there's
Okay.
always real-time communication of capacity and then forward transparency of work. We will only replace when it gets to a certain point. We call it the reorder point. Okay. Yes.
Very well.
So exactly. So depending on their process, the voice of the process, they're able to come out with the fact that we have noticed that anytime the order the inventory gets to this particular point, if we don't add more, we will not be able to meet customer requirement. And therefore, that reorder point is calculated, and then um, we decide to always add inventory or when we get to that point. Okay, so that is basically it. Then the pool based, okay, is just like the just in time. We have the pushing and then we have the pulling. You see,
Yeah.
you push, it means that you are producing more than is necessary. You are pushing the thing on the customers, okay? But the
Yeah.
pool based typically relies on data, artificial intelligence, and they're able to know when to, get the customer to make that demand. And so under lean management, we talk about what we call the lean five. You identify value, you try as much as possible to make the workflow. And that is all that is about. Too much inventory may even lead to bottlenecks. You get it here.
Yeah.
So that is it. Okay. Theory of constraint. What constraint? What are we talking about? You see that it's also under lean manufacturing.
Yeah.
Yes. We want to identify the most important limiting factor and then see how we can work around it to improve it. Okay. Typically, a constraint is said to be a bottleneck. It doesn't allow flow. But what we want is that if we can really respond to the customer in that agile manner, then the process should flow as much as possible. It should be very efficient. Okay. So what are
Yeah.
the steps involved in here? First of all, we need to identify what the constraint is. If you don't know the problem, you cannot solve it, right? So once we've identified the constraint, then we need to exploit the constraint. In other words, make the most of what you have. You see, we want to make the most of what we have. And that is where sometimes we'll turn complaining, these things are not available. But the truth of the matter is that resources are always a major constraint. Is that not it? So what we have
Yeah.
is what we're going to use. What you have is what we're going to use. Then you subordinate and then synchronize to the constraint. In other words, you must look at all the activities and make sure that they are aligned. Okay. In fact, TOC
Yeah.
is a whole topic on its own. Okay, and designed for Six Sigma. You look at that into detail. DFSS is simply trying to make sure that quality is built into the product from the onset.
Okay.
Okay, yes.
Okay.
So we'll look at project quality management where we talk about Six Sigma. So TOC is one of those things that we'll look at, especially in the new product development. You want to look at all these things. Then you elevate. In other words, take analysis. Are you asking a question?
No, no, I'm not.
Okay, take analysis to the next level. Once you have reviewed your activities to see that they are aligned, is not enough. Analyze to the next level to find out what further actions can be taken to eliminate the risk should it exist. If it is still there, what else can we do so that it does not exist at all? Then we repeat the process until there's no longer a constraint. So this TOC kind of thing, the steps is more cyclical. Okay, so you can read on it. The other materials that I'll share with you, just for the fact that life does not just end at PMP, obtaining the PMP.
Yeah.
In fact, the PMP is the beginning of life. You get it here.
Yeah.
Once you've gotten it, yeah, they'll be looking up to you. You're a PM. What will you do? Okay.
Okay.
Now, tailoring considerations. What are the considerations that you need to do to tailor your project? What life cycle approach? Depends on the project, depends on the environment, depends on your industry. Okay.
Okay.
Resource availability. What are the factors that influence the duration based on the availability and the skill? A highly skilled person may not be available, but the person you have here is not skilled. It means that if Henry is very skilled in developing this program, Henry may take only 5 days,
Yeah.
but Sebastian is just a new entrant guy. He just entered and he doesn't have experience. You don't expect Sebastian to use 5 days like Henry.
Okay.
Sebastian may use about, let's say, 10 days.
Mm,
So if I know that it is Sebastian that is going to work on the project, I can't say that developing this particular program will take 5 days. No, it will take 10 days because
okay.
Sebastian that is working on it. Now, in some cases, it was Sebastian that was working, but when it got to that particular activity, Henry now is available. So if
Mm,
Henry comes to replace Sebastian, you should expect that the 10 days that we gave the particular activity is no longer going to be 10 days. It's going to be what? 5 days or less. Is that
improved.
not it?
Yeah.
And so in that case, there's going to be a certain 5 days free for us to say that, okay, then within this 5 days, what can we do? So these are the things that we look at when we are scheduling. Then
Okay.
the dimensions which we talked about, the size of the project, the uncertainties or risk, okay, all these things will impact the control that you have on your schedule. Depending on your organization, I always say finding myself where I am and then where I'm teaching. Look, it is easy for me, okay, to
Uh-huh.
go to our printing room and then print questions for my student at any time and tell them to work.
Yeah.
You understand? Because the resources are available, okay?
Yeah.
All I need to do is to be able to justify to my head that we need this person to come and then have this talk or discussion with my student. Based on this, it is available. But you should know that in some instances, for some, you can't even go to the offices or the printing room. The thing is not even there. You get it now.
Yeah.
So the technology that is present at the time, the kind of support that you get, is there a PMIS and project management information system?
Yeah.
Some organizations have that PMIS where knowledge and then all the repository on project are kept. So it is very easy for you to work there and then get whatever you want. Communication tools are available. But if you don't have that, then whenever you are scheduling, you have to what? Schedule according to what you have.
Okay.
There was a time we were having this argument at a meeting, and I asked my management one simple question. Why do you know that on the average, it takes about 2 weeks or three for the report to be completed and filled by teachers? And then you keep telling parents that they will get a report in a week. You see, if you continue doing that, what happens is that you're going to have dissatisfied customers.
Exactly.
Whenever exactly, you're going to tell the person that this thing is going to take 3 weeks based on historical data. And so once you're going to give the deadline, you yourself should also be able to be realistic that anything can come in. So you add your buffer. So the thing will take about 2 weeks on the average for everybody to finish. But I want to tell my customer that the thing will take about maybe 3 weeks, not because of anything. You tell him that the thing will take about 3 weeks, he's okay with that. Within that period, you're able to deliver. That customer will be satisfied. But if you tell the customer that the thing is going to take 2 weeks, and then unforeseen circumstances come in and it is taking 3 weeks, he or she will start complaining. You get the point here. So these are
Yeah, I
the
guess
things
it.
that we're talking about. Then we're looking at considerations for agile and then adaptive environment. PMI is saying that it is not compulsory that your project should go through this. But if you find yourself in an agile or adaptive environment, then these are the things that you should look at. Scaling factors like the team size, technical complexity, multiple approaches. Either you are using the waterfall, the agile, or the hybrid. You know, we talked about a hybrid approach where it may be a combination of the two,
Yeah.
or the adaptive approach where it is an iterative scheduling.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, this is where you should note the one in blue here. The role of the project manager will not change regardless of whether the environment is predictive or adaptive.
Okay.
Because the project manager functions to primarily coordinate and then integrate the activities. And these are the activities done by the Scrum Master. Okay.
Okay.
The only
Okay.
difference here is that the Scrum Master tends to give the Scrum team some level of autonomy, okay, for them to take certain decisions at certain point. Okay. So if there's anything that will change, it is the power that will change, but the role itself will not change. So
Okay.
it's very, very important for you to note this one. Then you should be familiar with tools and techniques under agile and then adaptive environment. That is, if you are over there, you should be able to. And I'm sure that once you find yourself there, definitely you'll be familiar with them and then know how to use them. So project schedule. When we say project schedule, what is it? It assigns a duration to the project activities, and the activities are sequenced in a logical manner. I'm sure you are familiar with the Gantt chart, right? The Microsoft Teams. You've been able
Yeah.
to, the MS project. Yes, so you're able to come out with this. It gives you you see, this one gives you the pictorial representation of the dependencies and the connectivities, how they are related. And then, of
Yeah.
course, this one talks about how the activities are further broken down. Okay. So with this, you can create the WBS. Okay. So it defines the start and then the end date of the project and its activities. Okay. We
Yeah.
assign resources, duration to each task. Okay. And then we also indicate which task is a successor or what a predecessor. We look at all these things. And usually, like I said, the MS project is one of the most popular tools that is used within the industry. But if your organization is not using MS project and they are using something else, you got to use that one.
Okay.
Because, yeah, it comes with a cost. That is the whole thing. Unless maybe you have it and then but at the end of the day, standardization is also taken into consideration. So
Okay.
you'd want to use what is within the environment. Okay. Now, the
Okay.
project management plan is not a project schedule.
Okay.
It is just a plan that looks at how we are going to manage the schedule. Therefore, the project schedule, okay,
Okay.
may be within the project management plan, but it is not, the project management plan is not the project schedule. So if you really want to know the schedule of the project, you go to the project schedule, or what we call the schedule baseline. You get it here. Sometimes they are used
Yeah.
interchangeably. Yes. So it is more comprehensive and contains various project related plans. So you see, this one is very comprehensive. The reason why this is important is that sometimes the question asks you, the project manager wants to find out the duration of the project because the project was being handled by maybe another project manager and he's been taken off. Now you've come to take over. If you want to find the schedule of the project, where should you look at? And then the answers will be there. Okay.
Okay.
Uh-huh. It may also include a schedule. So if the project schedule or the schedule baseline is not available, then the best answer will be the project management plan. I
Okay.
hope you get the point here.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that is it. So the answer you choose always depends on what has been given. The Gantt chart, I mean, you know Gantt chart, so please let me not deliberate further on this unless you want me to move on it. Should I say anything
No, I
there?
don't know. I don't know Gantt chart. Oh.
Oh, okay. You see, when we go forward, I'll give you a typical example of it. With a
Okay.
Microsoft MS project, okay,
Yeah.
this it's like a bar chart,
Okay.
okay? It's horizontal in nature. So let's say let's say activity 1 will start and it will take, so activity 1 takes 3 days. Activity 2 will take 5 days. Okay.
Okay.
But activity 2 will start 2 days after activity 1 has started. So
Hmm?
the Gantt chart will give you a bar like this, giving you the stretch of the days.
Hmm?
And then we are saying that 2 will start 2 days or
After.
3 days after this one has started. Is that not it? So
Yeah.
then we come in here. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of overlap.
Okay.
Do you get it?
Yeah.
So you see the activity. Okay. So this is activity A or 1, and this is activity B. So
Yeah.
pictorially, if the moment I look at it, as I look at it here, most
Mm-hmm.
of the time, so we have the dependencies. We'll talk about the project dependencies.
Okay.
We have the start to start. We have the finish to start. Okay, start to start means that both activities will start. So let us
Mm-hmm.
look at this here. Okay, and
Okay.
then we have a finish to start. Okay, so it means that this activity must finish before this one will what?
That.
Continue.
Yeah.
Okay, do you get it here? Sorry,
Yeah.
must start. Okay, so that is finish to start. Then we have the finish to finish. In other words, irrespective of when this activity is starting, it has to finish with the preceding activity. So
Okay.
you see the arrow here. So the two of them, so you see it is indicating, and then it gives you, you see the first one, it is 57% what? Complete.
Complete. Yeah.
So the darker side here is showing us
The
that this
completed.
element here is 57% exactly. Now, managers, when they come, or top manager, he picks it and he looks at these things. He doesn't have the time to read the document that you have. Okay, so pictorially, when we go into the system, it is so clear for us. You see,
Okay.
this one is 0% complete. It means that has not been what? Done
That
at
is.
all.
Yeah.
Now, in fact, with the Gantt chart, the MS project, it gives you the opportunity also to add the resources. Okay, this activity is going to be undertaken by, let's say, Michael. Okay, so you add Michael. It even has the component where Michael's rate per the hour that he's going to work is also stated there, and it can calculate for you.
Okay.
Yes, yes. So MS project. I think I have something on MS project, a video on it, the training document. You can, since you are within the environment where you work on this,
Yeah.
once you're able to, yes, study it, it really helps.
Okay.
In fact, there are people, we have the PMP, okay,
Mm-hmm.
PMP, and then we have the SP. SPs are the schedule professionals.
Okay.
On the project, what they do is to schedule.
Okay.
You, the project manager, should just have an idea. If you know how to do it, it's fine. Because there are some people, by their nature, if they know that this thing depends on them, they start throwing their weight about. You get it here.
I
So
got it.
where it matters most, and then this person is just throwing the weight, and then there's no money to get somebody. You, the PM, if you can do it, it is fine. It's always better if you can do it yourself.
Okay.
Okay. But
Yeah.
you should know that the SP is the one who actually will be able to do this. Okay, somebody really knows how to do it, and then he does it with perfection. So you should expect that in exams, they can give you something like this and ask you to indicate the type of dependency that exists between one activity and the other.
Mm. Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
yes. So we have the finish to start, then we have the start to start, and we have the finish to finish, and then we
Mm-hmm.
have the start to finish. The most widely used is what? Finish to start. This one must finish before this one what?
That.
Starts. That is mostly used. Okay, so that is the Gantt chart. The individual that wrote it is called Gantt.
Okay.
So good. So it's a type of bar chart that displays. Why is this important in your exams? The question is, you want to show management the duration of the project, the status of the project, together with the um, activities involved. You see, this is the WBS. You get it here.
Yeah.
So management will know the activities involved. He knows the dependency, even the duration for each activity, and the status now. How is it like?
Yeah.
And the question is, which of these tools will you use? Are you going to use the Pareto chart? Are you going to use the scatter diagram? They will intentionally give you tools that are all pictorial in nature.
Yeah.
Exactly. But if you know what each tool does, then you pick the Gantt chart.
Okay.
Okay. If I want to identify amongst the activities, the ones that are in terms of priority, then the Pareto chart is important, can help you. It's also a bar chart, just that one, it gives you the critical few, is that not it? And then
Yeah.
that which is not so important. Yes. So that is it. So can we continue?
Yeah. We can.
Okay, good. So this is what we're talking about, the relationship or the dependencies.
Okay.
Finish to start, an activity must finish before the next activity start. Finish to finish, an activity must finish before the next activity can finish. You see? And then start to start, an activity must start before the next activity can start. So until this one starts, this one will not start. Then we have the start to finish. An activity must start before the next activity can finish. Now, we are saying that charts are generally laid out with a finish to start, and then the time resources are adjusted by changing the relationship of tasks, either start to start or finish to finish or start to finish. Do you get it here?
Yeah, I get it.
But in fact, let me come in here. So usually the start to finish is rarely used. Okay.
Okay. Start to
Yeah,
finish.
it's really,
Yeah,
yeah,
finish.
the start to finish is rarely used. Okay. But this one is the most widely used, the first one here. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, so these are the dependencies or the relationship amongst activities. Okay. So let's continue. We have what we call the mandatory dependency, discretionary dependency. Okay.
Okay.
Now, the dependency suggests that the project activities are interdependent. Okay, and we can classify them here. For mandatory dependencies, we are saying that these dependencies are inherent in the nature of the work and cannot be passed by. For instance, the foundation of a civil structure must be laid before working on the pillars and then the slabs.
Yeah.
It is mandatory. Then discretionary dependency, it means that we can use our discretion. You get it here?
Yeah.
Yes. So they are based on the preference of the team and can be changed if required.
Okay.
Painting activities can be started only after all the electrical and the plumbing work is done. Typically, that is it, right?
Yeah.
But we can toggle between.
You can talk exactly.
Exactly, you can toggle between. Then we have the second classification where we look at the external dependency and then the internal dependency. Now, these dependencies involve an external entity that may impact the project. If you need it, it's just that in our part of the world, the way things are, but ideally, before you even build your house, right, you
Yeah.
should have invited the engineer to come and check the
Yeah.
area. Is that not it?
Exactly.
Look at your plan, then they will
That,
give you the approval. In fact, in advanced countries, there's even somebody who comes to check the type of land and soil.
wow.
Yeah, it depends on, seriously speaking, They will check and then give you the go ahead, especially depending on what you are coming to do.
Okay.
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 So if it requires that until that approval is given, and remember, if you are working within and in a government sector, or maybe within an in your organization,
Mm-hmm.
you cannot bypass these things because of legal issues.
Yeah.
You can lose your job. If you are building your own house, you can decide to bypass. You can decide to build and get to a point they'll come and put stop work there. Then you start chasing the permit. You
Yeah.
understand? But if you are a regional engineer, you cannot just do it like that. You must follow these external dependencies. So you see, approval by a government authority for the structural design of a building. If you are not given the approval and you start, trouble. Now, another one is when you see the internal dependencies, they are within the control of the project team. The commencement of the slab work depends on the availability of ready mixed material.
Yeah.
Even within the team, maybe there's one engineer that checks that, okay, this concrete that has been done or mixed, or this slab, the shocks are, I mean, those material engineers, they come and check. You're going to use this for a road, okay? Will
Yeah.
it be able to stand the kind of stress and strain as far as the users of the road is concerned?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So if within our organization or the team, somebody must do that before you continue, then it becomes an internal. However, if the person to check this is outside the organization, then it's an external what? Dependency. Please note these dependencies very well as you go along in the preparation for the exams. Okay. Please note that. And what I like is that within your field where you are, as we
Mm-hmm.
talk about these things, picture those activities
Yeah.
that are mandatory dependencies, they are discretionary dependencies, which ones, like we looked at the Gantt chart, which one is finished to start, which one is start to finish. You can just be thinking about these examples in your head, okay?
Okay. Yeah.
Now, network diagram is used to plot the activity dependencies. You see, all we need to do is to represent whatever is going on pictorially so
Okay.
that it can easily be seen, and then we can also analyze it. You see, the moment you start doing this, you get a fair idea of what is going on. Okay. So project activities are represented in the form of a network. Network diagrams can be drawn in one of the following ways. Either you do the activity on node or you do the activity on arrow. Okay. The activity on node is what we usually call the precedence diagram model.
Okay.
This is the most commonly used one.
Yeah.
Then there is the activity or the arrow diagram model, where the activity is on the arrow. Okay.
Yeah.
It is rarely used. Okay. So let's look at the difference between the precedence diagram model and then the arrow diagram model. Boxes represent the activities. So if you have come across one before, I don't know, but this is the box. So let's say activity A. You get it now. Then
Yeah.
maybe the next activity is activity B, like this.
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen this.
Aha, exactly. So these are so the box represent the activity. Then the arrow indicates the dependency. So let's say if I have one here now and I call this B, then what I need to know is that B and C depend on A. You see, B and C, they depend on A. Do you get it?
Yeah.
So it is telling us also the dependencies. Then there's also the relationships that we talked about, the finish to start. So you see, this will finish and this will start in that order, or the start to finish or the finish to finish. But when we get to the activity on arrow, arrows are used to represent the activities. The direction of the arrows indicate the relationship and sequences. So usually this is activity A. Do you get it here?
Yeah.
Exactly. So the arrow is showing the activity, and in some cases they will put the duration by it. Okay. Now we are saying that only finish to start relationship can be shown. You see, so you see the disadvantage here. If you are
Yeah.
using the arrow on the activity on arrow, you cannot do any of these. You can only do the F to S. Is that not it?
Yeah.
Finish to start. Aha. Now, dummy activities may be required to show a what? Dependency. Okay.
Okay.
So that is the difference between the two of them. Now, there may be questions in the PMP exams. This one is very important. So I have some assignment here that I'll give you. We'll go through some, but I have some assignment that you're going to do. Okay.
Okay.
Yes, you learn how to do it yourself. And then at the end of the day, when you come across it in exams, it will not be a problem for you.
Okay.
So you see, this an example. Okay. There's the activity on node. Have you seen it here?
Yeah.
Okay. And we are saying that Hammock activities are used to show a comprehensive summary activity. Okay. Which can be
Okay.
used for control and reporting purposes. We have done this, but we can decide to do these Hammock ones to show the comprehensive summary. Okay. This is just a pictorial view. We don't go into detail. You
Okay.
get it? Just
Yeah.
activity A, activity B, and all that. Okay. Then we look at the type of estimate. You want to know the, how do you call it? The duration and all that.
Okay.
We have the parametric estimate. Typically, parametric estimate, we try to look at the historical data that we have, okay, and come
Okay.
out with a certain model, mathematical algorithm,
Okay.
okay, usually a formula, you understand, that
Yeah.
if we want to calculate maybe the depth of this particular um, well that we are going to pick, we need to use this formula that this, when we put in this and that, you get this. So that one is parametric, okay.
Okay.
Then we have the analogous estimate, which I'm sure it will be over here. Yes, the analogous estimate. Analogous is the difference between the analogous estimating and then the parametric estimate is that both of them, the similarity is both of them are based their way on historical data. But with the analogous, it doesn't come out with any model. Okay. So
Okay.
you did this project some time ago, and then it took you about five weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And you are saying that you are certain that because in terms of size and complexity, this project is also like that, it will take you what weeks. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Exactly. So that is the analogous estimate. Now, then the question of effort and then duration comes in. It tends to confuse a lot. So by effort, we are looking at the number of labor unit. So 5 people did the activity, but the activity maybe lasted for 1 hour. What it means is that the activity itself has a duration of, let's say, 1 hour. But in terms of level of effort, because it took 5 people to do it, you're going to multiply these 5 people by the number of hours, which is 1 hour. Have you seen it here? So the level of effort involved here is 5 times what? That are, so that will be 5 hours. Is that not it?
Yeah.
Exactly. You see? So you can say that 5 person hours. The person here is talking about the number of people who do it, and then the duration, which is what, 1 hour. So the number of labor units required to complete a scheduled activity or the work breakdown structure component, often expressed in hours, days, or weeks. Okay. Then the
Okay.
duration, we are looking at the work period, how long according to the days. Typically, weekends are not part of the days. Weekends are seen as holidays.
Okay.
So when you pick the Gantt chart, for instance, the MS project, it does not allow you to schedule on, put somebody on a Saturday. It will not show unless you indicate there that it is an overtime before it will allow you.
Okay.
Yeah, yes. So if we say a project is taking 20 days, we are taking what? Weekends out.
Okay.
Okay. And of
Okay.
course, holidays are dependent on where you are.
Yeah.
6th March is a holiday in Ghana, but it's not a holiday if you are in, let's say, Nigeria. So as for those public holidays, it depends. But typically, weekends are not days of work for the project manager, and you have to respect that. They can
Okay.
test you on it. Yeah. Now, if you want them to work over the weekend, there has to be an agreement. If they say no, you cannot talk. You
Yeah.
just have to, yeah. So here, let's look at it here. An activity requires 10 people to work for 5 days, you see. So calculate the level of effort. You multiply 5 by what? The 10.
Then.
Exactly. Okay. So
Yeah.
that will give you 50 person days. That is the effort. However, the duration is 5 days.
Okay.
Do you get it now?
Yeah.
So please note, rolling wave planning, we've looked at it. We said that it's an iterative planning technique in which the work to be accomplished is near term, planned in detail. Exactly. So what should be done in the near term is what we want to focus our attention on. Okay. So the
Yeah.
subsequent ones, we just do it on a high level. Okay. Rolling
Yeah.
wave planning is also known as what? It's a form of progressive elaboration. I don't know whether you've had a time to watch the video on progressive elaboration, but I promised I was going to upload the entire course on managing scope.
Yeah.
Okay, it's about 3 hours. I was trying to upload that yesterday, but it wasn't going through because of network issues. I'm sure I'll try it today. Once it goes to, in fact, it's a very wonderful way on how to handle scope, and it's aligned with the PMI body of knowledge. I hope you get it. So
Yeah.
just find time to read. Okay. Now let's look at, so we've talked about analogous estimation. Analogous estimation is a technique for estimating the duration or cost of an activity or a project using what? Historical data from a similar activity or project. You see, this
Yeah.
estimate use parameters from a previous similar project. So that one, you don't come out. So the issue of mathematical formula or algorithm or models do not come in here.
Okay.
You see, last 5 similar project to 6 months. So you are assuming that this one will also take what? 6 months. You see.
Yeah.
Now the issue of leads and then the lags. What is a lead and what is a lag? Once you draw your activity network diagram, you should be able to indicate the leads and then the lags. Okay. Remember
Okay.
I said that activity A started, but B can start 2 days after activity A has started. Okay.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to wait for this to what? End. Okay. So there is a lead here. But if it has to wait 2 days, like when you mix concrete and then you know that you cannot continue until it becomes hard. There's a particular
Yeah.
term that yes, the building technologists usually use. Okay. Now, until this one becomes hard, you cannot do anything on it. So if it will take 2 days for it to become hard, for the next one to be done, for the next activity to be done, let's say you have to lay the blocks, then it means that there's a lag of 2 days between the two activities. I hope
Okay.
you get it exactly. So
Yeah.
a successor activity is said to have a lead when it can start before the what? Predecessor.
Yeah.
See, end. So let's say activity B can start 2 days before the completion of activity A, like we looked at earlier.
Yeah.
Now, when a successor activity is said to have a lag, then it is when it needs to be delayed with respect to the predecessor. Like B can start 2 days after activity A is completed. So these are the leads and then the lags.
Yeah.
So this is a typical example here. So this is a lead. You see, this is task A. While it is in progress, task B has started here.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. So this is the lead. Okay.
Okay.
Then when you look at this one, task A is here, and then this is task B. So you see that there's a lag here. Now, these are examples of leads and then lags. Okay. And so we have looked at some. So even in your, I mean, this is a typical funny example, right? Setting the microwave on preheating while working on the mixture. You see, it's a
Yeah.
lead. Is that not? Yeah, it's a lead. I mean, we do these things almost every day, right? Almost every
Yeah.
day. Yes, almost every day you do that. Now, this is where I want you to look at carefully.
Okay.
Mathematically, on the network diagram, leads are represented with negative.
Okay.
Now, what does it mean? We are looking at the impact of that thing on the project schedule. If we have a lead of 2 days, that means that we actually have reduced the duration by 2 days. Is that not it?
Yeah.
Exactly. Then if we have to wait for 2 days for this to, then there's a plus of 2 days. That will mean that the project duration would have increased by what? 2 days. I hope you get it here. So the
Yeah.
signs are indicative of their effect on the activity or the project duration. So let us note that,
Okay.
because you might think that, when you add, you are going forward, so it should be a lead. But that is it. So let proceed. Now we are looking at the processes proper of project schedule management. Remember, how many processes are here? You see, one, these are five, and then this is what? So there are 6 processes in what? Schedule management. You plan the schedule management, you define the activities, you sequence them, and then you estimate the duration. Okay. Why don't
Yeah.
you estimate the duration before you sequence them? No, the sequencing is not the network diagram. The sequencing is basically looking at the relationship between them. Should this one start before this? I hope you get the point here.
Yeah.
And then yes, that one will even give us an idea how long it is going to take. That is why it is important to sequence first before we estimate the duration. Now that we know the duration, then we can develop the schedule using the critical path method that I'm going to talk about very soon. Okay, like the
Okay.
network diagram. That is where the network diagram comes in here. Then you control schedule. Okay, so let
Okay.
us look at the first process in scheduling management. You plan schedule management. Okay, plan schedule management is a process of establishing the policies, procedures, and documentation for planning, developing and managing or executing what? The schedule. And it belongs to the planning process group. What are the inputs? Before we can plan the schedule of the project, what do? We need to look at the project management plan. The project management plan has the scope management plan and other documents like the scope baselines, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, the WBS, all these things are there. So when we go there, we can find what is relevant to plan the schedule. The project charter, the charter will tell the duration of the project. This project is starting this, it will take this number of what? Weeks or months. So it is important to look at the project charter. Enterprise environmental factors, factors within or without the organization regarding the scheduling of what? Project. OPAs, within your organization, if you have the PMIS, there's the
PMO.
PMIS, the PMO, okay, there are other assets there, okay. So the PMOs will tell you that, okay, when it comes to this, we need to use this and that, okay, this is the, so all these things are under the OPA, the asset of the organization. You need an expert judgment. It is said that whenever you are developing the schedule, or even let me put it, planning a schedule, you are a project manager, but you need the expertise of those who are actually going to do the work to help you plan it.
Okay.
You see,
Yeah.
yes, the software developer can tell you exactly. You may not be the developer, you are just coordinating it. He will help you. And then maybe there's a senior project manager who has done this thing before. So he can guide you as to what you should look at. Definitely
Okay.
there will be meetings, right? Then there will
Yeah.
be the analysis of the information, that the data that you gather. Okay. Now, what is the output? It has only one output, the schedule management plan. There's nothing else apart from the schedule management plan. Okay. Then we look at the next process. So you see, when it comes to the processes, it's not, I mean, stressful. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
Know the process, the input, and then the output, and then the tools
Yes.
and techniques.
Okay.
And then for each input, you should know what it is about. If you see expert judgment, what does it mean? If we talk about meetings, what do we mean? What do you as a project manager need to make your meeting what successful? There are certain soft skills that, like facilitating skills and all those things, okay. So
Okay.
those ones, yes, so those ones, I know that once you engage in managerial activities, you tend to know that. Then so we have plan. So the first one is to plan schedule management, right? Then the
Yeah.
second, so this one has come out with the schedule management plan.
Yeah.
Then we come to the next activity, which is to define activities. We want to define the activities, and so we go to the project management plan. Again, the project management plan, you have AC. Oh, sorry, please hold on. Where something?
Okay.
Okay, it's my little girl. She's not feeling too well, and instead of her wearing something, she's also not wearing anything, and she's coughing.
Nice.
So here, define activities is the process of identifying and documenting the specific actions to be performed to produce the project deliverables. Okay. Now, what activities need to be done? Remember the WBS, that one, you are looking at the scope, is that not it? And
Yeah.
so the scope gave you the deliverables and then the what we call the packages. Now within these packages, what activities ought to be done? You get it now? What activities ought to be done?
Okay.
So the project management plan will involve all such, how do you call it, information. Okay, the
Yeah.
project management plan exactly will involve that. Then, what again? The enterprise environmental factor. We should note that, how do we call it? The project management plan has the scope baseline. Okay, the scope baseline, remember, is giving us what the entire scope of the project is. Okay, so even though you do not see scope baseline here, the scope baseline is also an input into this particular process. They define the
Okay.
activities. Yes, the scope baseline is an input. Okay, it's an
Okay.
input into it. Aha. So it's very, very important. Shall we continue?
Yeah.
Good. Then we look at enterprise environmental factors, which we know what they are, and then the organizational process asset. Now, let me hint in here that, when you are defining activities, what are the factors within the, organization, okay, that will impact this activity? Okay,
Yeah.
yes. So it is important for us always to be able to tell what is an enterprise environmental factor and what is a process asset. There are two things that run across the inputs. Okay.
Yeah.
Typically, OPAs are tangible things, right? They
Yeah.
are tangible. Yes, exactly. They are tangible. So those are the things that we should look at. Then, what are the, tools and techniques? Expert judgment, decomposition. Remember, we did some decomposition at the WBS.
Yeah.
Exactly. And based on the WBS, that we can actually come out with the activities. That is why there's a relationship between what the, um, WBS and then what we are doing here. Okay.
Active. Yeah.
Exactly. And these activities provide the basis for estimating, settling, and executing, and monitoring and control of the project work. Okay. Then
Okay.
we have meetings. And then, of course, rolling wave planning. It should be noted here that it is not every project that you use this rolling wave planning.
Okay.
But for every project, you may have to decompose. You know, we said rolling wave planning is when you do, I mean, some plan, the early one, the near future ones, you just try to, the near term ones, you plan them, and then those ones will be into detail. Then
Yeah.
the other ones, maybe you do it at high level. Once you're approaching there, you sit down and then you do that into detail. Okay. So, depending on the type of project, you may implement this. Okay.
Okay.
It is a tool. It is a tool. So it's not every time that you use all the tools. Is that not it? Uh-huh.
Exactly.
But the output, what are the output? Activity list, a list of all the activities. Then we have activity attribute, the characteristics of these activities that you have listed. Okay.
Yeah.
Then the milestone list. What are the milestones as we are doing this? Okay, we will consider having acquired or obtained the, clearance from the district engineer as a milestone. Do you get it?
Yeah.
Yes. So, in project, you tend to be celebrating the milestones. It means that you are gradually getting to what? The end.
Complete.
So you have yes, the milestone list so that we can give a definition to done. When we say the work is done, what does it mean? Then change request. Now in the PMBOK 5, change request was not an output, but we are saying that, you see, as you are defining activities, we may have to do some changes to the project management plan. Maybe the scope. Okay, we just noticed that there's something that we should have added that was not added at the scope level. You understand?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
therefore, for us to, you see, these three baselines, if you want to do any change to them, it has to really go through the integrated change control. Okay, so a change request is submitted. You see that it is not approved. So the change
Yeah.
request, yes, is sent, and then necessary changes, if it is approved by the change control board, then you implement that change.
Okay.
You implement that change. There was a question that you missed. We'll talk about the exams that you
Okay.
wrote later. I'll find a particular time, maybe next week when we have done the majority of it. We'll look at the questions again. Okay, then you know
Okay.
when to submit a change request, when to implement a change without going through. You see, the question was saying that you noticed that a certain component had not been done, but you are just about the point of maybe meeting the customers to validate the
Yeah.
scope or the work. So you are in the verification process. At that point, there's no need going to the change control board to make the necessary changes. It's a mistake that you have noticed. So quickly you correct it even before. But if there's a change that is going to impact the project schedule and all those things, then that one
Yes.
you go through exactly. Exactly. So you have to, the questions are very cunning. So you have to be very careful. Okay. So once we have done this, we expect that we need to make changes or updates. Let me put it that way. We need to update the project management plan. Okay. So you see, we go to the next one. Is that not it? The next one is what? Sequence activities. We are identifying and documenting the relationship among the activities. So here, maybe this one comes before that. Okay, the two of them can rally in parallel. Here, you just want to know the relationship that exists. Okay, so of course, you need a project management plan. You need project document. Okay, you see work breakdown structure will give you the WBS dictionary. Is that not it? It will
Yeah.
give you um, certain information. Okay, the project scope baseline. So all these document, okay, fall under project document, and there's a list of project document which I will share with you. So
Okay.
you know what falls under project document. Then we come to enterprise environmental factors and then organizational process asset. Okay.
Okay.
What are the policies as far as the organization is concerned when it comes to sequencing activities? Okay.
Yeah.
A typical maybe enterprise environmental factor will be where you find yourself. Are you within, how do you call it, an agile environment? Okay.
Yeah.
And then what type of sequencing are you going to do? Okay, so the tools and technique here is what the PDM, precedent diagram method, that we looked at.
Yeah.
Yes, dependency determination and integration. Okay, PMIS, leads, and then the lags. You see here,
Yeah.
because we are trying to sequence, we want to know the lead and then the lags. Okay, good. Now, after, what is the output? The project schedule network diagrams. You get it here.
Yeah.
Here, you use this, you may use the critical path method, okay, the activity on node or you see, this is usually the AON, then diagramming method, activity on node. So after you've done all these things, then we have the project schedule network diagrams.
Yeah.
Because we looked at project document here, there may be some updates that we need to make to this. Okay, so
Yeah.
sequencing activities will come with what? How do you call it? Project schedule network diagrams and then project document update. Now, what are the documents within the project management plan here? We are looking at, so I just want to give you certain details, okay? So you
Okay.
see the schedule management plan will be part of this.
Yeah.
Did you get it here? Good.
Yeah.
The activity list is a project document.
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Activity attribute is a
Gotcha.
project document. The milestone list is a project document. Have you seen it now?
Yeah.
And then the project scope statement. So here under the project document, we have activity list. You may jot it down, the activity list. Okay. Then you have the activity attribute, and then you have the milestone list. Okay. And then you
Yeah.
have the project scope statement. So all these together come under the project document. Okay. And then for the project management plan, you have also the schedule management plan and maybe other plans that are related to what we are doing. You get it now.
Yeah, I get it.
Okay, so let's continue. Estimate activity durations. We need to look at the duration. So to estimate activity duration, what is the activity duration? What is the activity duration? Based on expert judgment, 3-point estimating. You know the 3-point estimating. 3-point estimate, okay, is where we look at the um, optimistic, the most likely, and then the pessimistic.
Okay.
Okay. What is the real situation on the ground? That is the most likely. In
Okay.
real sense, what? Then all things being equal, that is this one. Then optimistic is when things work in our favor. You see, we are optimistic that we're going to complete this. So this is more like you are basing this on some kind of zeal. Okay, so it's not so real. Then the pessimistic is when you are not too sure, but because of certain risks, you think that it's like the worst case scenario. Okay,
Yeah.
so this is the best case scenario, the best case scenario. This is the worst case scenario. Then this one is all things being equal. You see, all things being equal. The accounts will say ceteris what parable.
Yeah.
Okay, yes. So that is the 3-point estimate. We'll be looking at that into detail. Okay, we usually use that to estimate the average and then the standard deviation. Okay,
Okay.
yes. The standard deviation helps us in doing what we call the buffers. Okay,
Okay.
so we talked about analogous estimation. We talked about bottom up. Bottom up is when you start from the bottom of the WBS, okay, and
Yeah.
then you go up. Yes. Then we have the parametric where you have, let's say, per square foot is this is going to take this to do that, and therefore, if it is going to take this, then if we are using this is how much it will take. You understand?
Yeah.
If it will take 3 days to tile maybe 50 by 50 square foot kind of, then since we are looking at 100, then it may 100 by 100, then it will take about 6 days, that kind of estimation. Then you do some data analysis. You understand? You must
Yeah.
analyze the information that you've gotten. And then there's also some decision making. Okay, we need to decide as a team how long it is going to take. Remember, the expert may say it takes this number of days. Your 3-point estimate is also saying this. But finally, what should we say? Now, these things are done usually in meetings, or is that not it? So we'll be meetings. So these are the tools and then the techniques. Now, what are the, how do you call it? The um,
Outcomes. The outcomes.
outcomes or the output. Let me put it that way, the output. The output here are duration estimate, okay? Or sometimes they call it activity duration estimate, okay? The basis for estimate initially was not part of the output. So the PMBOK 5 doesn't have this, but the PMBOK 6 is saying that what are the basis for your estimate? It should be documented so that you see whenever we want to make reference to anything, we know the basis on which we did this estimate. Do you get it now? Then
Yeah.
there's going to be the how do you call it, the update to the project management document, the activity list and all those things. Okay, so we have looked at, we have planned schedule management. Is that not it? What was the next activity? We defined activities. Is that not it?
Yeah.
And then now we have what? Looking at estimate activity duration.
The
Okay.
sequence, the sequence activities came
We, yes,
before.
we sequence activities, and then we did what? Estimate activity durations.
Yeah.
Do you get it now? Good. So this is a business case scenario. So let's see. John, the EVP is end value professional. Okay, end value professional. It the trademark of AACE. AACE. Okay.
Okay.
AACE. So you can look for them. They give certain other like the certified cost professional. Okay. Yeah. So when it comes to costing in the cost management and all those things, that is their field. Okay, the
Okay.
AVPs too, they tend to look at whether the project is on schedule. So it's more, this one is more of a monitoring and control kind of thing. So the EVP of the manufacturing division has commissioned Jack to lead a project initiative in her area of responsibility because of his attention. Okay, so in his area, sorry, his attention to detail. Jack is working with his team to estimate activity duration so they can map out the schedule for the project. After a successful decomposition process of the scope statement of work, Jack is confident in the team's ability to capture the true work effort that needs to be estimated and scheduled. In reviewing the activities to be estimated, Jack realizes that a large number of activities could benefit from some historical data and the use of mathematical parameters. So here you can really look at what type of estimating we are talking about here. What do you think here? Historical data
Yeah.
and the use of
Parametric estimating.
exactly parametric. This minimizes his estimating risk for 60% of the activities. For the remaining activities, the team is able to research past practices and industry standards to come up with a range of estimate based on optimistic, pessimistic, and realistic duration. What is that?
The 3-point estimating.
Very good. It is under what we call the PERT, P-E-R-T. Okay.
The what?
P-E, PERT, P-E.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll look at that. Yes, PERT, P-E-R-T. Don't worry, we'll look at that. Okay, so what approach are Jack and his team likely to take to determine their estimate? Okay, you see here, what did I say? PERT, is that not it?
Yeah. First.
Jack and his team have decided to use parametric estimation technique for many activities, which you you said, and then have decided to use 3-point estimate for the remaining activities. This is also known as PERT, Program Evaluation Review Technique. Okay,
Okay.
Program Evaluation Review Technique. So yes, I'm sure about the name, but let's see going forward. So that is basically it. Okay, so you look
Okay.
at the information there, and then you know what it is. Now we need to develop the schedule. Okay, we need to develop the schedule. So this is where schedule network analysis, resource optimization, okay,
Okay.
resource optimization, we want to make sure that we have made optimal use of what the resources available, like linear programming. Okay, I don't know if you've come across linear programming before.
Yeah.
Yes, so it's an optimization technique. Depending on where you are, you can talk about design of experiment, okay, or experimental designs. So these are you see, we want to develop the schedule. Develop schedule is the process of analyzing activity sequences, durations, resource requirement, and schedule constraint to create the project schedule model for project execution and monitoring and controlling. You see, because here you want to develop the schedule itself, the project schedule, you want to develop it. Yes. So yes, we schedule management plan within the project management plan, other management plans that are related to this activity, the project document which we talked about, we made a list of them. The agreement is very important. The agreement now comes in, okay? And then the EEFs and then the OPAs. But we should note the tools and techniques carefully. We have the leads and the lags, which we talked about. The
Yeah.
network analysis is different from network diagram. You have drawn the network, but now you want to analyze it. You understand?
Yeah.
So it becomes a technique. Okay, so you should know the difference between a tool and then a technique. Leads
Okay.
and lags are techniques, they are not tools. The critical path method is a technique. Shadow compression is a technique. Resource optimization. The linear programming tool, it becomes a tool, okay, but it can also
Okay.
become a technique. Then the PMIS, data analysis, agile release planning. If you find yourself within the agile environment, okay, agile release planning, okay, is also done. Okay, you know how they do theirs. So within the agile environment, like we said, we do the project to a certain point, allow the users or to interface with it, while we also go back and then do certain changes to that. So there's a whole literature on this agile release planning that you can read on. What is the output? Look at the output. We have the schedule baseline.
Mm-hmm.
We have the word project schedule. Then we have the schedule data, project calendars, change request, and then the PM update, and then the project document update.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. The baseline is more of a certain yardstick as far as the schedule is concerned. Okay. By which we are going to be measured by. Okay, and then this one is more or less a detailed one, right? It is
Yeah.
telling us exactly what is involved within the project schedule. And then data is just information, sorry, the raw,
What is
yes, information about the schedule, okay? Then the
uh-huh.
calendars, definitely on our project, we have calendars that will tell, okay, this is ending at this particular time and all those things. Okay, so basically, now within this developed schedule, there may require that some changes need to be made. So we'll do the change request, right? And then if it
Yeah.
is approved, we, do you get me?
Yeah.
Okay. So schedule network analysis. Along with the time estimate, it is necessary to know if the required resources are available at a given time. Analysis techniques generate the project schedule. You see, various schedule network techniques are follow the critical path method, what if scenarios, the Monte Carlo analysis, resource optimization. Okay. Monte Carlo usually use a certain, it's also more like a scenario based, but that one it is modular. Okay, it's modular. We are looking at certain parameters within the project or certain factors and how a change in these factors will affect one or the other. So it is used to simulate the outcomes of the project by making use of input values selected at random from probability distributions. Okay,
Yeah.
this is more like a quantitative approach.
Okay.
You understand? Because we have obtained the values, we have a certain model, we are modeling the real situation, right? And then we are
Yeah.
inputting the values and then changing them, and we want to see what happens as this moves to this point or that moves to that point. Okay, that's Monte Carlo analysis. Look, there's an entire course on Monte Carlo analysis, right? But this is a PMP exams, and what we need to know is what that this it can do.
Okay.
Okay, then we look at the what if scenario. Okay, so we are observing. So what will happen if this happens? Okay, yeah.
Okay.
So this one you see that it's not quantitative in nature. It's more qualitative.
Okay.
Okay, so what happens if government decides to say that this? How will it impact us? Okay, so
Yeah.
that is it. Then resource optimization techniques, like we talked about here. The resources that we have are always one of our constraints.
Yeah.
So how best can we optimize these resources? If you use the linear programming, I mean, you'll be able to do it. Gone are those days when these things were more manual, but now that we have applications in place, they can just, you input them and then they just run it for you. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So with the PMP exam, this is what we will dwell on.
Yeah.
Critical path, the longest path in the project network diagram, but the shortest possible time for the project to end.
Okay.
Yes. Longest path because it tends to have the longest duration. Okay, when you put the activities together, the duration of the activities together, okay, you see that it will always have the longest duration. But then the project cannot go beyond that duration. That is why it is saying that it is the shortest possible time a project can end.
Okay.
You get it here?
Yeah.
Good. The PET, you see, program evaluation and then review technique. Okay, I was right. So here we look at the pessimistic, which is the worst case scenario, then the most likely, which is the realistic scenario, and then the optimistic, the best case scenario. So if we want to find the average time something will happen, the duration, okay, the formula here is the pessimistic time plus 4 times the most likely plus the optimistic all over 6. Please, these formulas came out from certain, derivations, okay?
Okay.
Our interest is to know how to use the formula, that's all. How it came into being, PMI will not examine you on that. So to calculate the standard deviation, we're looking at the pessimistic minus the optimistic divided by 6. Now, variance is always the square of
Standard
standard
deviation.
deviation. Exactly. So once you're able to obtain the standard deviation, you just have to square it and then you get it. And seriously, it says pet questions. There are questions that tend to come a lot. Okay. They
Okay.
tend to come even more than the critical path because that one you see is very easy.
Mhm.
Okay. But a formula is only easy when you use it consistently and you build what we call the unconscious competence.
Okay.
You understand? You don't even think about it and then it just flows. Okay.
Yeah.
So exactly. If you see you're going to wait last minute, then you may confuse yourself. The 4 may go to the optimistic instead of going to the what? Most likely.
Yeah.
So let's look at a situation where our optimistic is 20 days. Let's assume that is days. And then
Mhm.
the pessimistic is 70 days. And then the most likely is 30. If you want to find the average duration of the project, then we said pessimistic by 4 times plus 4 times what?
Most like.
Most likely
Yeah.
plus the optimistic, all of them divided by 6. So the mean is going to be 35 days. Do you get it here? Then we
Yeah.
want to approximate the standard deviation so that we will know the buffers. Okay. So
Okay.
standard deviation here is what? Pessimistic minus optimistic divided by 6, and that is what? 8. The normal curve, likelihood of an actual time lying between 1 standard deviation, 2 standard deviations, and 3 standard deviations. Now, for 1 standard deviation, it says that 20 what? 7.
Yeah.
Why? 35 minus the standard deviation, which is 8, is 27. Have you seen it here?
Okay.
Exactly. 2 standard deviations. 2 times 8 is 16. From the 35 will give us this. Okay. So we are looking at it, and basically the normal distribution is regardless of the values here. Whatever data that you have, we are saying that if it follows the normal distribution, then 1%, 68.2% represent the area under 1 standard deviation. Okay, 95.4% will be the area under 2 standard deviations. And you know that the normal curve is symmetrical, right?
Yeah.
Symmetrical meaning that you move to the right and move to the left is the same. So 1 standard deviation to the right is here, then 1 standard deviation to the left is here. Okay. So when we say 1
Yeah.
standard deviation, you are not just looking at here. So here is 34 point what? 1. Here is 34.1, 1 standard deviation. You put it together, then the entire area here is the 68.2. Have you seen it here?
Yeah.
Exactly. So basically this. So you see that the concept of sigma has come in here. So
Mhm.
if we talk about 6 sigma, we are talking about 6 sigma like this, 6 standard deviations. Okay. So for
Okay.
6 standard deviations, then we are saying that usually our level of confidence is 3.4 times out of a million will fall outside the stated range, meaning that if you are producing a million products, only 3.4 of them will be defective. That is standard Six Sigma measure. So if your company is maybe an automobile industry, whatever industry it finds itself, whatever it produces, if it's able to produce 100 of them, we expect that the defect in them will be just 3.4. Okay. We'll talk about this, excuse me, in quality management. Okay. So PET allows you to plan based on the intended level of confidence in the outcome and determine what buffers accordingly. Remember, I said that the standard deviation helps you in what the buffers. Okay.
Okay.
Critical path method. Terms that you're going to encounter: free float and then total float. Now,
Okay.
what is the difference between the two? The amount of time a scheduled activity can be delayed or extended from its early start date without delaying the project finish date or violating a schedule constraint. So when we take the project, we have scheduled it to see that it will take a certain amount of days. Now, if we're going to delay a certain activity, okay, and this delay is not going to have an impact on the finish date of the project, then we are saying that this particular um, activity has a float or a slack or a total float. But there's one also called the free float. Note very well that in the exams, when it comes to these things, either you calculate the slack. When they say slack, they are talking about float. So either you are calculating the total float or you are calculating a free float.
Okay.
The difference is here is that, look, the amount of time that a scheduled activity can be delayed without delaying the early start date of a successor. You see here, the total float, we are looking at the entire duration of the project. You understand me? So
Yeah.
we can delay an activity by a certain number of days without actually delaying the entire project. That is total float. Then we have what we call the free float, where we can delay the activity and it is not going to affect the early start of the successor activity. In other words, if we can delay activity A by 1 day, such that it is not going to affect activity B if activity B is the immediate successor of activity A. In some cases, activity A depends on, it's a predecessor to what? Activity, let's say A and B and C, okay? Now, if we delay activity A by 1 day, it should make sure that it does not affect the early start date for both successor activities. So if I delay this one by 1 day, it is not going to do anything to this one, but it is going to affect this. Then it is not a free float. Do you get it?
Yeah.
Yes, that is. So you see the difference here. For total float, which is TF, you are looking at what will happen if an activity is delayed in reference to the project finish date. But the free float, we are looking at what will happen if an activity is delayed, what will happen to its immediate successor activities.
Okay.
Okay, yes. Critical path, like I said, is the longest duration through a network diagrams, and it also determines the shortest time to complete the project. So float, also called slack, is calculated in network diagrams. Okay. Now,
Okay.
the total float on the critical path is 0. The reason is simple. You cannot delay the project any further than the duration of the critical path. Is that not it?
Yeah.
Yes. So it will have no float. So
Okay.
anytime you do your critical path analysis and then you are getting a float on the critical path, there's something wrong with your analysis.
Okay.
Why is the critical path method good? You see, we know that when we delay any of the activities on the critical path, it will affect the entire project. So once you know that this activity is on a critical path, you know how to manage it. Now, if the activity is not on the critical path, we know that then we can delay it, but we should also look at the free float of that activity.
Okay.
So it gives the PM a fair idea of what is urgent and what can wait, right? Yes.
Yeah.
And then an idea of what activities must finish early for the entire project to complete ahead of schedule. You see, so that is the beauty of this critical path method. But one disadvantage is that the critical path method, unlike the critical chain method, which we'll talk about shortly, does not include the resources and the buffers. It only looks at the sequence between them and then the float and then the free float. We can estimate the lags thereof, but we cannot actually tell the resources and then the buffers to cater for risks. I hope you get the point here. So that is
Yeah.
one disadvantage of this. So the concept of free float and total float, I've expanded them here. We talked about it,
Yeah.
but it's here. So let's proceed. How to calculate total float. Remember, every activity has its early start and it has its late start. It also has its
Okay.
late finish and then its early finish. So the difference between the late start and then the early start, or the late finish and then the early finish, will give us the total float.
Okay.
Or when we pick a particular path within a network, the difference between the duration of that activity on the path of the path in the network and then the duration of the critical path. So let's assume that the critical part here is A, B, C, okay? And the duration is 27.
Okay.
And then the activities A, C, D, okay, is one network on the activity network diagram. And it takes, let's say, 20 days. If we have established that this is the critical path, okay, then the float here on activity ACB, activity ACD here is going to be 27, is that not it? Minus 20, which is
Okay.
equal to what? 7
7.
days. And this 7 days is on the path ABC, not just on A. So it can be distributed amongst the activities.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So we can calculate the total float either from the LS minus ES, as we usually write it, or LF minus what? EF,
Okay.
or the duration of the critical path minus the path whose float we are looking for.
Okay.
Then free float, which is usually related to an activity. So note this, free float is usually related to an activity. So if they don't say free float, but they say calculate the float on activity A, what they are asking you is to calculate the free float of activity A. I hope you get the point here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, the minimum late start of all activities of the given activity. The minimum late start of all successor activities. Remember, I said that an activity may be precedent to two activities. Let's say activity C and D all depend on what? A.
Mm-hmm.
So C and D are the successor activity of A.
Yeah.
So if I want to calculate the slack or the float on activity A, I want to look at the minimum late start of the two of them. Assuming the late start of activity C is 7, the late start of activity D is 6. Okay, then what I'm going to do is that I'm going to put the minimum late start, which is what? 6, is that not it?
Yeah.
Exactly, because for the successor activities, the late start for the two of them is 7 and 6 is minimum 6, minus the early start of the activity. So assuming the early start of the activity A here is 1, we are assuming that it is 1. Then you're going to put that 1 here to be 1.
Okay.
Assuming that activity A takes 3 days. That is the duration of activity A. So that will be 3. So 6 minus 1 is what?
5.
5 minus 3 is what? 2.
2.
So
Yeah.
that will mean that activity, exactly. Do you get it here? So
Yeah.
here, it means that activity A has a free float of what? 2 days.
Yeah.
Do you get it now?
Yeah. That's it.
Exactly. Yeah, so calculate the float on an activity is simply free float. Calculate the float of a particular path. Then you're going to take the duration of that path and subtract it from the critical path. Okay, so that is basically it. So now let's look at this here. Now, free float is always less than or equal to the total float.
Okay.
Yeah, it can be less than or equal to the total float, but it can never be greater than the total float.
Okay.
Okay, it can never be greater than the total float. So I was talking about early start. So typically, this is what we do. We have this. It was invented by one of those researchers. So this is early start. This is what? Early finish.
Yeah.
Then this is late start, and then this is what? The late finish. Okay. Whenever we are moving this way, looking at the difference from the early start to the early finish, we are doing what we call the forward pass.
Okay.
Forward pass, yes, forward pass. Okay, we want to determine the earliest start times of the activities on the node. Okay, and then when we are moving backward, that is from the late finish to the late start, we call that the backward pass. Now, the backward pass determines the latest completion times or the latest completion date for the various nodes. Okay, so we want to
Okay.
use this in determining the float. So this is typically what we do here. We start and then we end. Get it? So this is
Yeah.
the typical example. Activity 1 will take 3 days. Activity 2 here, it takes 3 days. Activity 3, 4 days. Activity 4, 8 days. Activity 5, what? 4 days. Okay. So we want to look at the path here. We said that we can start from 1. Is that not it? You start, you go to 1, you go to 2, you go to 4, you go to 5, and then you end. Or equally, you go to start 1. Is that not it?
Yeah.
Sorry, start, and then you go to the third one. So the arrow is saying that you go to the third one, okay, you go to the fifth one. The black line is talking about one different path, and then the
Yeah.
carry line is talking about a different path. Yes,
Okay.
okay. So each path has its duration. Looking at what we have here, the path 1, 2, 4, 5 is the one with the
18.
highest duration, which is 18. And so that will be the critical path. Have you seen it
Okay.
here? Start,
Yeah.
yes, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and is the critical path. Now, if that is the critical path, then we expect that the total float there will be 0. We'll look at how we calculate the float. But let's look at how we start here. You see, activity 1 has 3 days. So we usually have 2 ways of starting. Either you start at day 1 is equal to 0, or day 1 is equal to 1.
Okay.
I always like this one. Day 1 is equal to 0. The reason is that the day 1 is equal to 1. Eventually, you are still going to look at it as if day 1 is equal to 0. It tends
Okay.
to be confusing. So let's stick to the day 1 is equal to 0. If day
Okay.
1 is equal to 0, then we are going to finish activity 1 on the third day. Is that not it?
Yeah.
Exactly. Now, then if from activities, you see, we looked at the part here, 1 to 2.
Mm-hmm.
If it is a finish to start as usual, that means that once this one finishes on the third day,
We'll
on the
start.
same third day, we will start this one exactly. So we'll
Okay.
start on day 3. But according to what we have here, activity 2 has 3 days. So 3, 4, 5, 6. It will end on the 6th day. So the early start is 0. The late finish should be what? So the early finish should be 3.
Three.
The
Yeah.
early start here is 3. The early finish is what? 6.
6.
Then the early start for this one will be 6. And because this one has how many days duration? 8 days duration.
Yes,
We're
yeah.
going to add 8 to the 6. That will be 14. So the early finish is 14.
Mhm.
You get it here. Then
Yeah.
the next activity is activity 5. Activity 5 has 4 days. So the early start is 14. We add 4 to it, we get what? 18, and to finish, which is the end. Then
Yeah.
we come back to the second path. You see?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So we start at 103, and then we go to this activity 3 because it is a finish to start and it depends on it. This one will also start on the third day. Is that not it? So
Yeah.
if this one starts on the third day, according to what we have, activity 3 is supposed to be 4 days. So the
That's it.
early that will be 7. You see? But
Yeah.
according to what we have here, right from this one, we go to activity 5. Is that not it?
Yeah.
Activity 5. But because activity 5, look at it carefully, activity 5 depends on activity 4 and activity 3. Have
Yeah.
you seen it here?
Mm-hmm.
Even though the early finish for activity 3 is 7,
Mm-hmm.
the early finish for activity 4 is 14.
What?
Activity 5 depends on activity 4 and activity 3, which
Okay.
will mean that I cannot say that by the 7th day that this activity 3 has finished, I will start activity what? 5, because
5,
activity 5 depends on what? Activity 4 and
4.
activity 3. So
Mm-hmm.
that will mean that activity 5 can only have an early start of 14 for this one, which is activity 4, because it
Okay.
depends on both of them.
Okay.
Because if I say I'm going to start on the 7th day, by that time, activity 4 would have not finished.
Yeah.
Aha. So you get it now.
I get it.
So because of this weight between this one, you see that there's a float of 7 over here.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, because you see, between this one and this, there's a float of 7. So if we are going
Okay.
to even calculate the float, we say that it is the minimum what late starter. Is that not it?
That's
That was a
also
formula,
that's
right?
it. Yeah.
Yes, the
Yeah.
minimum late start of all successor activity. And we know that the successor activity of activity 3 is just activity 5. Is that not it? Yes, it's activity 5. So the late start of it is 14. Is that not it? Minus what? Late start minus what?
Of
Mm-hmm.
the activity.
Is that
Yes. Let's minus the early start of the activity.
minus the early start of the activity, which is what? 3. Is that
7.
not it? Early start
Yes, yes, yes.
is 3. Okay.
Okay.
Minus the duration of the activity. Activity
Mm,
3 is how many days?
4 days.
4 days. This is 7. Have you seen it now?
Yes, this 7.
Exactly. So the float on that activity is 7. So the late start, is that not it,
Mm,
of the preceding activity minus the early start of the activity itself minus the at. You should be able to use something to denote that it is the successor activity.
Okay.
Okay, you can put something there, yes, to indicate that. So this is how we calculate the um,
Good.
free float. Now, assuming we wanted to calculate the float on the path 1, 3, and 5, like I said, the float on 1, 3, and 5 is going to be the difference between the duration of the path and then that of the critical path. And from this, it is equal to what? 7. So we
Okay.
said that free float is either less than or equal to the total float, but it can never be greater than the total float. So this is a typical example where the total float, which is 7, is equal to the free float, which is also what? 7 here. Now,
Okay.
let's look at the float on the critical part. Float is late start or late finish minus um,
And-
early what? Finish. So late
Yeah.
finish is 3 minus this is 0. So when you take it, you see that all of them, it is 0. So the float on the critical path is what? 0.
So,
Exactly. So this is how it is done. So typically in exams, you see something like this. Typically in exams, you see something like this.
okay.
You see, yeah, you see something like this. And then they'll say, draw the network diagram, especially if it is theory. But if it is not theory, they'll just tell you, determine the critical part and its duration is just as the same as telling you to draw the diagram. Because looking at it this way, if you don't sketch it, to be very honest with you, you will not know the critical part. You get it wrong.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. Then what is the float of activity A? And then the float of the path with the longest float. Do you get it here?
Yeah.
So this one, should we do it together?
Yeah. Let's do it together.
Good. So if we're going to do it together, it's an interesting thing, right? Remember, I have just done the dependency based on what we have here. Is that not it? We've done it. Yes. Um, do you get it here?
Yeah.
I've done this. What we have here is what we're using, and this is the summary of it. Okay, because of time, that is why I drew the thing so that we'll just be putting in the values and then not make those mistakes that we probably would have made if we didn't have the. Okay, so activity A is 3 days. Is that not it?
Yeah.
Activity B 4 days. B is 4 days, right? Yes, activity B is 4 days. Activity C is what?
7
7 days. Activity D
all
is
days.
4 days. And then E is 9 days. F 8 days and all that. So as usual, what we have here means that activity D and A can start at the same time. So
Yeah.
they have a start to start relationship. So you take your time and then analyze one. We'll do the forward pass first. Now you see that activity one short thing that you want to do so that you stay on, you just write the durations on top. Write
Okay.
the durations on top. Yes. You don't have time to be going down there to be looking at it.
Okay.
The time flies and doing that exams is very funny.
So, but it's
You
not
get to a point.
theoretical. It's just objective. So
It's objective. It's objective. That's why.
it
That's
comes to one.
why you have to be very tactical and then know how to use the time, as it will beat you. On the average, you are spending 1 minute 20 seconds on a question.
Wow.
Do you get it? Yeah. So when that's how come I gave you that time,
Yeah.
because I wanted it to be standard. So all the ones that we'll be doing, they are going to be standard work. So now let's
Okay.
look at it here. So we'll start with A, which is 0, and D, 0. Is that not it? Duration
Yeah.
4 days.
Mm.
Okay. Then
For 8 is the
we
same.
know that, yes. So we come to here, because this depends on this. That will be 4 days. Have you seen it here?
Yeah.
Now, activity F also depends on activity D. And so that
Yeah.
will be what?
4.
Now we come here. Because activity F does not only depend on activity D, but depends on activity A, we must do activity A, which is 0. Is that not
Yeah.
it? And
Yeah.
then this will be what? 3.
3.
Exactly. Okay.
Yeah.
So this activity depends on this one and this one. So when this one A is finished, D is not done yet. Have you seen
Yeah.
it?
Yes.
Exactly. So what do? We must start
Take the
on the 4th day.
4th one.
Have
Yeah.
you seen it? Exactly. And then we'll add the 8 days to it. That will be 12.
Yeah.
Is that not it?
12. Yeah.
If we had used that one, the
Mm-hmm.
one, you write 1 here, add 4 to it. What would that be? 5.
5. Yeah.
And then instead of you writing 5 here, you subtract 1 from it and write 4. Is it not the
Mm.
same thing?
The same thing.
It's a waste of time. I mean, the thinking will be too much. So here
Yeah.
now, let's go to this one. We add 9 to this 4, it takes us to 13, right?
Yeah.
Now, activity G depends on what?
E
Both
and F.
activity, exactly. So what should we write here?
13.
Exactly, 13. And then this will be what? 17.
17. Yeah.
But since there are no other dependents apart from this, then H can start at what?
17.
Exactly. And end at
19.
exactly. Then, of course, this will start at
19.
exactly and end at
26.
26.
Uh,
And then it will finish. Now we come down here. This one depends on only this one. So it will be
12.
exactly and end at what?
16.
Exactly. Then we will do the backward pass. It is the backward
Okay.
help us to calculate the float and all that. Exactly. So the backward pass, the question is, what will be the late finish for this activity?
The late finish.
Yes, what will be the late finish of activity? Mhm.
Activity C.
Yes, what will be the late finish?
26.
Exactly, 26. Since we are moving backward, you're also going to deduct the 7 from the 26. What will you get? Are you there? Hello? Yeah, Henry.
Yes. I said 26.
Yes, now 26. Then what will be the late finish, late start?
It will be 19.
Exactly, it will be 19. Good. So now we come to this one. What will be the late finish?
19.
Exactly, 19. Okay, then this one will also be 17. Is that not it?
Yes.
17. Yes. Then we come to this one. That will be 17
And 13.
and 13. Now let's look at this one.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what will be, so from here, activity E, what will be, because activity B, E goes into this one, is that not it?
Yes.
Yes, so the late finish is also going to be 13.
13. Yeah.
Yes, 13. And then when we take this thing out of it, it will be 4. Then when we come here, the late finish will be also 4 here. Is that not it?
Yeah.
4. And then we come here,
0.
it is what? 0. Now let's move to this side and see. What will be the late finish for this one?
For B,
Activity
it will
B.
be
It
16.
will be,
16.
let's look at it again.
No, it will be the end. 26.
Exactly. It will be 26. So 26 minus 4 will be 22. Is that not it?
Yes.
Uh-huh. Then this one,
This one will be 22.
let's look at it here. Activity F goes into activity J and then activity B. And we are looking at the late what? Finish.
Finish. Yes.
Yes.
That's 22 or
Now let's look at it well. Because if it finishes on 22, because Jane depends on it, Jane, which has a what late start of 13, cannot continue. Have you seen it here?
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's the thing. You have to look at it, the dependencies again. Do you get it here?
Yeah, I
F
get it.
is the dependency of
Of
So
G and B.
for J and then B2, then it means that even though the late start of B is 22, because the late start of J is 13 and G depends on this, then it depends on F. This should be 13.
13. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. So 13 minus 4, that will give us what? Sorry, this is 8. So it will
8.
become, so this will be what? 5. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
It will be 5. Then we come here, that will be 5. Is that not it?
Yeah.
5, yes. 5 minus 3, and this one is going to be 2. Now let's go back to what the question was asking us to do. We should determine the critical path and its duration. So typically, what you're going to do is to look at the paths. So we start, you go to D, E, is that not it?
Yeah.
G, H, C. So start D, E, G, is that not it?
Yeah. G H.
H, and then what?
C.
C, and then you go to finish,
Yeah.
which is end. Okay, end. Okay, so that is one path. So you have to calculate its duration. Then the next path is start, is that not it? Start
Yeah. A F B.
A,
F
F,
and B.
and B,
Yeah.
okay,
And
and then it will end. Okay, is that all?
yeah. No.
No, there are a lot to
The
look at this.
the
So
other
you go to start again, then you go to
D.
D,
Yeah. You can go to F.
and you go to F, exactly.
Then you can go to G.
Exactly.
Then H C.
H, C, good. Then you can
Then you
also
can
go
go
to what?
D.
D, is that not it?
Yeah. Then you go to F.
F,
Then you go
exactly. You go to what?
E.
B, is that not it?
Yes.
And then you
Then M.
finish.
Mm,
Exactly.
yes.
Then you can also, let me see. So are we done with all that? Let me see. There's
Oh,
also
not
another
done.
one.
That's the A.
We go to A.
Then we go to F.
Exactly.
Then G, H, C.
Exactly. J, H, and then C. So you see, you're going to take the duration of, this is D, which is 4. E is 9. That is 13. Is that not it?
Yeah.
Plus G, which is what? 4. So that would be
7,
17. 17 plus H, which is 2. That
19.
is 19. 19 plus this is 26.
Yeah.
Okay, even though because of time we could have calculated, but let's do it. I mean, it's this will be the so let's come in here.
Okay.
A, F, B. A is 3, F is 8. That is 11.
8.
Is that not it?
Yes.
11
And
plus
B,
4 is
15.
15. Yes. Then we come to D, F, G, H, C. D, which is 4, F, which is 8, that is
8,
12.
12,
Then we come to here, that is 16,
16.
18, 25. Is that not it?
Right. Yeah.
25. So this is the second longest path from what we
Yeah.
are seeing. Exactly. Then we come to DFB, 4, 12, 16.
16. Yeah.
Then D, which is 4, F, which is
8.
8, that is 12. Is that not it? Plus
Yeah.
4, 16, plus 2, that is
8.
18, plus 7, that is what? 25.
25.
So
Yeah.
that's also 25, right?
Yeah. That's right.
That's also 25. So now, if we look at it carefully, the path D, E, G, H, C is the critical path.
Okay.
Yes, that's the critical path because that has the highest duration. And if
Okay.
we look at it carefully, if we want to calculate the float, this minus this gives us a float of 0. Look at it carefully. Everything here will give us 0. You see?
Yeah.
So the float here is 0, the float here is 0, and the float here is also 0.
Okay.
Yeah, have you seen it now? Let's
Yeah.
minus this. So there's no float on any of them. So it means that we cannot delay any activity here.
Yeah.
Okay, but we
Yeah.
can find the float on B. Okay, we can find the float on B. Is that not it? We can find
Yeah.
the float on B because the late start of the preceding activity, which will be 26 minus 8 early start. So 26 minus 8 early start, which is 12, minus 8 duration, which is
That's
4.
4. Yeah.
Yes, so that will be 10 days. Is that not it?
The 10 days.
Yes, 10 days. So the float on B is 10 days. Okay.
Mm,
Then when
yeah.
we want to look at the float on the path AFB, here, this one, the path AFB, we just want to know the float on it. Then
Uh,
the duration of that one is what? 15. Is that not
yeah.
it? So
Yeah.
you subtract it from 26, what are you getting?
That's negative.
No, 15 minus, no, 26 minus this one, sorry. It is the critical path duration minus the duration of that one. So that would be 26 minus 15. That would be what? That would be around
11.
11, is that not it?
Yeah.
Yes. Do you get it here? So
I
the
get it.
float on AFB is 11. Have you seen it? So
Yeah.
you can calculate the slope, the free float for an activity or for a particular path. And
Okay.
if you, I hope you get it now.
Yeah.
So basically that is the whole thing. That is the whole thing. Okay. So
Okay.
I have given you an assignment here. When you go, you do it. You're saying that we want to look at a situation where the resource on activity H, which is this activity, the person working on this, has been changed, okay, with a less, so he has been replaced with a less experienced resource. So now it takes 5 days instead of the usual what, 5 months, sorry, instead of the 2 months, okay?
Okay.
So how will this change affect the project? Support your response qualitatively and then quantitatively. It means that you're going to draw a new network diagram, okay? And then
Okay.
indicate, just as we did. The
Okay.
whole thing is that I want you to know how to draw the network diagram, be able
Okay.
to determine the critical path and then the float.
Okay.
The more you do it, the more conversant you become, and you'll be able to solve problems later. I hope you get me. Okay, so now let's proceed. What is the critical change method? Here, basically, we said that it considers the resources and then the risk, and therefore it will add buffers to the project. Okay,
Mhm.
exactly. So that is basically what the critical chain method does. Okay, that's what it does. So as for these, you can just read them. Well, there are types of buffers. We have the feeding buffers. Okay, so what is it? Okay, we are saying that the feeding buffers are placed at each point that a chain of dependent tasks, okay, not on the critical part critical chain feeds into the critical chain. Okay, so we the project buffer is what placed at the end of the critical chain, but the feeding buffers are not placed there. We place project buffers at the end of the critical chain to protect the target finish date so that in case of any slippage along the critical chain, it is protected. I hope you get the point here. But
Yeah.
then feeding buffers are placed at each point that a chain of dependent tasks not on the critical chain feeds into the critical chain. Okay, so feeding buffers protect the critical chain from slippage along the feeding chains. Okay, um, critical chain questions rarely. Okay, Henry, are you there? Yeah, hello.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, so we are saying that the critical chain method just focuses on managing remaining buffer durations against the remaining durations of task chains. Okay, and
Okay.
oh, come on, I'm coming. So this is a typical example of a critical chain. Okay, so you
Okay.
see the activities there, the relationships are there, all right. But you see where the feeding buffers are placed and then where the project buffer is. So the project buffer is placed here. Okay.
Okay.
Now, non-critical what link? The non-critical links are those with a faint one, and then the darker ones are the critical what chain links. By critical, we mean that they are on the critical path. Have you seen it here?
Yeah.
Aha. So you can only add buffers to the non-critical chain what? Ah,
Okay.
you see, you can't put it on this one because this is what a critical chain. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Basically, this the critical chain. Now, schedule compression. What we talked about earlier. Let's assume that you are behind schedule, or as you're on the project working, the sponsor now says that I want it earlier than before. What are you going to do? It means that activities A, B, and C, which initially were following the finish to start, we've seen that we can do activity B and C in parallel. So this is the, have you seen it here?
Yeah.
So now it's reducing the project cycle time. We call that fast tracking.
Okay. Fast.
Yes, fast tracking. Now, the disadvantage here is that it tends to increase risks, because as you are doing them in parallel, there may be a risk, okay, associated with doing the two of them in parallel. Either there are things that you may overlook or something. It all depends on what you are doing. Okay, so fast tracking usually leads to increased risk.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, your activities that were actually supposed to be done on a finish to start basis. If, for instance, you are supposed to finish um, plastering before you do maybe the painting, and you want to do the two of them together, which is an assumption, then there's a high risk that the finished work may not be the way it's supposed to be. You get it here.
Yeah.
Then there's also crashing. Crashing is usually increasing the resources on the critical path activities. So here you make cost and schedule trade-offs. So you must determine how to obtain the greatest amount of schedule compression for the least incremental cost while maintaining the project scope. This leads to increase in resources, so it's an issue of cost. Okay.
Okay.
Uh, yes, so that is it. So there's an example. Okay, you have the activities. Okay, they are giving you the duration, and then you have the crash days. So you see, this is the original duration 10, 14, 55, and then 9. But then by crashing them to add resources and all that, this is now the duration. It's supposed to be 10, but now it's 8, 14 by 10, 5 by 4, this 7. So how much did it cost you to do the crash? Okay. What is the extra cost? See, the original cost here was $10,000. But because of the crashing, it's now what, 12,000. So there's an extra cost of what? 2,000. Are you there
Yeah.
with me?
Yeah.
Exactly. It means that for each day that you dropped it cost what, $1,000.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you may, so we are at, so now these are evaluations that you make to decide which one you use. Remember, we said that you are to determine how to obtain the greatest amount of what? Schedule compression for the least incremental cost while you are obtaining what? Scope. So what you do here is to take the activities that are on the critical path, because according to this, resources on the critical path. So we don't crash activities that are not on the critical path. So here,
Okay.
once we have looked at these activities, which one, activity A, as it has the what? Minimum crash cost per day. Look at the
1,000. Yeah.
crash cost exactly. So then I would rather crash what? Activity A.
Mm.
Now, there's a whole technique in crashing. Okay.
Okay.
Yes, I'll send, there are links on YouTube that you can watch, but I have done that job for you. I have some other, the videos, some of the videos, I'll send them to you to look at. They will not ask you to perform crashing in the exams. They will show you something like this and ask you to take a decision. You understand?
Okay. Yeah.
Good. So what is the impact? Like I said, fast track at what? Risk. You see, and then it increases management time for the project. Crashing at cost, okay, and all that. So you can read this, is that not it? We can look
Yeah.
at this. Yes. So I just, other output of the developed schedule, you see, you can, there's the milestone schedule. Okay, this is a typical example. Okay, yes. PMI will not give you this question, but they can ask you what type of chart is this. You see, so the milestones, So that these are the stones, are not it? These are
Yeah.
the milestones. So it's telling us that these are the milestones. Okay, and this is the Gantt chart. This is exactly how it will look like. Okay,
Yeah.
so a
Yeah.
Gantt chart typically looks like this. So you see, when this one finishes, look at this. This one will start. Have you seen? So between
Yeah.
activity A and activity D, there's a finish to start activity relationship. You see here. So they can give you a diagram like this and ask you to tell them the relationship between activity A and let's say activity D. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
So this is the detailed one. Just so this is just it. So control schedule. All that we are doing so that the status of the we're monitoring is the process of monitoring the status of the project to update project schedule and manage changes to the schedule baseline. Okay, we want to make sure we work
Okay.
within the schedule. What are the input? The project management plan, project document, work performance data. You see, now the work performance data comes. You remember the Gantt chart? It was giving us the work performance data, 78%, all those things. So those are the work performance data. Okay. Then the organizational process asset. So we come in here, MS project will be an organizational process asset, depending on where you are working. Okay. So control schedule. What are the tools and techniques? Of course, we want to analyze the data involved here. We do the critical path method, resource optimization, schedule compression, project management information system, leads and lags. Then once we have work performance data, indeed, we are going to have work performance information, schedule forecasts, change request, project management plan update, and then the document update. So this is basically what project schedule management is all about. We can look
Okay.
at that later when I give you this. Okay. So
Okay.
knowledge check. I'll add that to the quiz, okay, and then we'll move straight to the cost management, depending on your time. I don't know whether you have time. How many minutes do you have
Uh,
to spare?
I have to go back. I have to start getting ready now.
Okay. So what we'll do is that our next lesson will be cost management. What I will do is the lesson on quality management and then resource management and communications management will be recorded. But when it comes to cost management, some of these things, it's important we do it. For instance, this one we'll do it live. You see how
Okay.
voluminous the schedule management is.
Very.
Yes, it's very voluminous. So if we said we're even going to look at the business scenarios and the knowledge checks, it's very voluminous and it takes time. Okay, it takes more than
Okay.
3 hours. Seriously speaking, yes, it takes more than
Yeah.
3 hours. But at least the class has been very effective, right? We're
Yes.
able
That's
to cover the essential ones. I'll send more materials for you to work on practice. And then hopefully next week we can, since next week we'll be looking at cost management. So we have Saturday and Sunday, right? So Saturday, God willing, we'll look at cost management.
okay.
And then Sunday, we'll look at the remaining, that is stakeholder management and then risk management. Okay, good. And then the last one will be, I think, procurement. So we'll just try as much as possible. I'm hoping that by next week, Sunday, we are done. Okay, and then we'll focus on it. Now, the issue of the application within the week, let's have a discussion and see how best, okay, we'll go about it.
Okay.
Okay,
Sure.
okay. So as usual, I have recorded the session and I would, of course,
Absolutely.
make it available once it is
Okay.
ready. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so
Thank you
much
very much.
for your time. Okay. All the best and have a nice day. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
You too. Bye.
Okay. Bye.